Welcome, everyone, to the October 21st monthly JEA board meeting. Again, I want to welcome everyone and call to order. At this point, I'd like to everyone stand for a moment of time for reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance that will be led by our Vice Chair, Lisa Singh, with for a moment of reflection. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to ask for an adoption of the agenda that you have for clarity. Roman numeral 3B2. JEA IBEW collective bargaining agreement has been added. Additionally, at the request of the Office of General Counsel, agenda item Roman numeral 3A2 PEA impasse hearing minutes have been removed. So what I'd like to do at this point is we've got a lot of issues, and what I'd like to do to leadership team while you're here, each of y'all, if you will look on your agenda that you've been given anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. At 1 minute, when you have 1 minute left, Melissa will hold up a card. You will have 1 minute to finish. When she holds up the red card, whatever that word is, that's the last thing you will say. We've got to stay on the schedule. We're going to follow the same strict order as we do the presentation. So I ask everyone to be conscious of that. We've got a lot of folks here. We've got a lot of important things to do. At this time, I'm going to ask for an adoption of the agenda with the clarifications.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, show it agenda. At this point, Tim Kopita, who is the C&M Working Formula Foreman, he's going to give us our safety briefing. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. You've got a full house, so.
Yes, I'll make it briefly.
No, it's important. With the full house, everybody, I want them to hear what you have to say.
Okay. In case of emergency, we need to evacuate the building. We'll be using the stairwell to the left of the elevators. Please be aware of all the hazards, people in chairs and tripods and bags. Hold the handrails while descending down the steps. Call security and 911 have been arranged, and CPR also has been arranged. Fire extinguishers are located left of the elevators, and that's just to clear for an exit, not to fight a fire. Please have your cell phones turned off, and the restrooms are located around the corner out the hallway there. It's my time to talk a little bit about myself. It's kind of not comfortable, but I am a construction and maintenance working foreman. I work for a Mike Bose group. I've been here for almost 20 years now. It's kind of went by pretty quick. At this time, I am the safety and health representative for the Southside Service Center. I'm involved in various committees and councils for JEA. I came through the Lyman Apprentice Program, and I have a beautiful wife of 23 years, a daughter who's 19 who's in St. John's River Community College, a son who's 15 who is in Bartram Trail High School, and I love hunting, hence my beard at this time, and I'll shave it off in the summertime, so I like boating and fishing. So that's all I have. I hope that was short and sweet for you, and you guys have a great meeting.
Thank you. And thank you for your service. Appreciate it.
That's right. Go Navy.
As
You're
we
not
move on-
leaving us, are you? Huh?
You said it was a long one.
Thank you for the loyalty. Yeah, we'll write that down. Presentation. And what we will do. First one will be Inroads Outstanding Service in Leadership Development Community Partnership. Little Sulphur, how you doing?
Hey, I'm
good to see you again.
You too, Mike.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. My name is Willetta Stanford. I'm the Director of Emerging Workforce Strategies, and I've had the opportunity to accept an award on behalf of JEA that I wanted to spend just a few minutes to recognize, to let the board know about them. JEA has been a partner with an organization called Jasmine, which is the Jacksonville Area Sexual Minority Youth Network, which is a nonprofit youth organization for LGBT youth ages 13 to 23. Jasmine's vision is to create a world where young people are respected and valued to themselves. On October 10th, JEA was recognized as a table patron, which we've been for the past 5 years, at the Coming Out Day breakfast that was put together for small business, corporate, educational, and professional communities to get together to support the organization. And this year, they're actually celebrating 20 years of existence. So I wanted this time to present this award that we received from Jasmine to the board.
Very nice.
And also, I wanted to take an opportunity to speak to another award we were receiving today, but unfortunately, due to an accident on 95, they were not able to make it here, but that was Inroads. Inroads is also an organization that we partner with, which was founded actually here in Jacksonville back in 1986. And we've been community partners with them for the past 10 years, and they wanted to present an award to us today, but unfortunately due to the accident, they're not going to make it here in time, so I will hopefully ask for a space on the agenda next month to present that award at that time.
Thank you, ma'am. I wanted to share that Willetta and we were at that breakfast together, and there were over 500 folks there in that 20 years, and it was an extraordinary breakfast. And to JEA, thank you for the leadership that you're taking in that field and in the community. Appreciate it very much. Now, J.D. Power's Customer Satisfaction Wave 1 results. Monica, going to keep rolling on positive things here. So we are awaiting the good news.
Well, good afternoon. I definitely have good news to share with you today, and I'm thrilled to be here to share both our residential and our business Wave 1 2015 customer satisfaction results. The great news is the residential results came in on October 14th. I'm happy to report that they are the highest results JEA has ever received in our history. Over 700. Our score was 701 for the residential market, and also for the first time in our history in the residential market overall in the top quartile. We were ranked number 23 out of 140 utilities nationally. Some key highlights to share. We are number 2 in Florida, only behind Clay. We were 54 points above 2014 year end, 59 points above our Wave 1 2014, and our highest score in JEA's history. So just really exciting news to share, and just enormous thanks to all of the employees that have helped make that possible. Likewise, for our first wave of 2015 business customer satisfaction, also in the first quartile. So some quick highlights. This just shows the growth that we have seen over the years, and now we are, for both residential and business, over the 700 mark and in the top quartile. What are some of the key changes that are driving that? Power quality and reliability. Really take hat off to Mike Frost and his team. They've been working very hard at reducing brief interruptions as well as lengthy, as well as our technology team. And our team working on improving our communications when there is an outage. You will see we are among the lowest in Florida in this area, and low is good. Also, you will see that for this first wave, more of our customers actually heard of the decrease being our fuel credit. Fewer conversations and concern about potential increases, which certainly helped us. And then we've been talking through the year about our focus on increasing our participation and creating more options and choices for customers. We definitely saw that give us a bounce and impact our customer satisfaction for eBill and JEA.com, as well as improved estimated restoration time on power restoration and employee volunteering. Likewise, for the business market, the areas that we see helping us there, improving economy, and that businesses recognize the important role that JEA plays in helping with the improving economy. Again, a reduction in outages and increased communications with our customers. Specifically for our business markets, working with our key account reps and having a dedicated representative, whether that be proactive communication in person, proactive communication with a phone call or an email, it is an important part of what we do, and you'll see how that has increased year over year. And likewise, that the percentage of business customers acknowledging that and recognizing that. And as we share some awards later, we'll share the work that the key account and business team have been doing to make that possible. So with that, we currently are in Wave 2 for both the residential and the business market. Great success. Congratulations to the entire JEA team. And we look forward to keep our forward momentum going.
Thank you, Monica. Comments?
Very good. Nice job. Thank you.
Nice go, Monica.
Congrats.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to the whole team. I mean, that's pretty extraordinary. So please convey on behalf of the board, thank you. Make sure-
Absolutely.
On to next quarter.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Appreciate it. Well, Monica, since you're there, we're going to keep you up there for eSource key account customer satisfaction, First Coast
Yes.
Manufacturer. We're going to put on your, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, apologize for that. I have the pleasure today of recognizing 3 awards that JEA has received for employees in different work groups. The first one is Deb Beaver and Maritza, who are here and who work with our key accounts and our business market. Why the eSource Award is so significant is about a year or a year and a half ago, as we started taking our journey on business customer satisfaction, these 2 leaders took on a benchmarking study to understand the best practices in serving business customers, identified where JEA had some opportunity for improvement based on those national benchmarks, and put those in place with new service levels, new programs, new ways of reaching out. You specifically saw that in the presentation I just gave with the proactive accounts and the improved service levels. Well, this year, eSource, which is a national industry organization association with over 300 utilities nationally, recognized Deb and JEA for excellence in business customer relationships and key account programs, specifically based on feedback from our customers as well as our best practices. And so that is the eSource Award that is being handed around for you, and we're just really proud of that award, and we're definitely seeing the fruit of that in our J.D. Power numbers as well. Then we also received 2 awards from the First Coast Manufacturers Association. Would like to recognize Ray Toll and the pricing and finance team, and he's here with us today, for being a finalist in the Economic Development Award. JEA, as you're aware, developed 2 new economic development-oriented rate options, our high load factor rate and our economic development rider. And that was recognized by the First Coast Manufacturers Association for helping with economic development in the community. Again, an important component to our J.D. Power customer satisfaction as well, because it is important for our customers to know that we are positively contributing to the economy. Then the third award, I'd like to recognize Blake Osner and his training team from Angie's team. First Coast Manufacturers Association also recognized JEA with the Award of Excellence in Workforce Development, recognizing the importance that workforce readiness, training and educating a workforce is to local business success, to our local economy, and JEA was recognized as an organization for excellence in employee development and training.
Is Deb, Ray, and Blake, are you all here?
Yes, they
Would
are.
y'all please stand, please? Thank you all very much. Great work, thank you.
Very good.
Thank you, Monica. Now, we have a September Safety Committee monthly video. Lee Green? Yeah. Welcome.
Good afternoon. I'm Leah Green. I'm the manager for Safety and Health Services, and I'm here today to tell you a bit about our September Safety Commitment Month. I'm sure many of you in the room know, and some of you might remember, that we have had a spike in recordable incidents in October for the last several years here at JEA. And so this year we said, well, what could we do differently to improve our performance in safety in October and also throughout the fiscal year? And we put together a September Safety Commitment campaign. It ran 4 weeks during the month of September. Each week of the month we had a safety video, a JEA-specific safety video that we developed in-house, and a set of talking points that we distributed to managers and directors and asked them to share with their employees. As part of this process, week 4, we did a specific commitment campaign, and in week 4, we also distributed a poster that we asked each employee to sign as their visible commitment to safety for FY15. We gave out hard hat stickers, which look like this, that are another visual reminder of our commitment to safety in the fiscal year. And I am pleased to report that we are seeing improved performance this October. I checked the statistics today just to make sure, and we have had 1 recordable injury to date. And this same time period last year, we were sitting at 6. So we feel like this process has, hopefully helped us with our improvement. And so now I'd like to share a video from week 4, which was the I'm Committed theme. And Russell, if you'll play that for me, it's a 3-minute video.
Hello and welcome to week 4 of September Safety Month. I'm here today at Northside Generating Station. I've observed today, as in the past, making Northside and all of our facilities and job sites safe is a real team effort. Over the past 12 months, our team has not achieved its safety potential. We, and I mean all of us, have let 43 members of our team get hurt on the job. I find this unacceptable, and I know you do too. We can do better, but it will take a strong commitment from each and every one of you at every level in the organization to achieve our vision of 0 safety incidents. Here are some very good reasons why you should be committed to safety.
I'm committed to safety because of the next guy. Because if he's safe, I'm safe, and if I'm safe, then I know he's safe.
We're committed to safety because we don't want to see any of our colleagues get hurt.
I'm committed to safety because dogs, you got to watch out for them. If you don't watch out for them, they will bite you.
I am committed to safety because I have a family at home that waits for me every afternoon. And also I have a lot of customers out there that depend on me.
We are committed to safety because a safe JEA is a strong JEA.
I'm committed to safety because I want to go home to my family every day.
I'm committed to safety for JEA.
We are committed to safety because it's the right thing to do.
I'm committed to safety because if I weren't committed to safety, I wouldn't be here right now. I've got grandchildren I'd like to see graduate from high school and get married someday. And I've got all my fingers and toes still intact, and that's the only way to keep them that way is to be committed to safety.
We are committed to safety because our
employees are our most valuable asset.
I'm committed to safety for my family. I think it's very important to them if I come home every day uninjured because nobody wants to get bad news at all. If I keep all my limbs intact, if I keep good health, now I come home happy and everybody's happy.
And I would like to add that I am committed to safety because I believe no one, and I mean no one, at JEA should ever be hurt on the job. And at the end of each day, everyone should return home safely. Maybe a little tired, but return home safely. I hope September Safety Month has helped renew your personal commitment to safety because your individual commitment is absolutely required to help the whole JEA team reach our safety potential. 0 safety incidents.
Thank you.
Cute hat. Very cute hat.
Good job, yeah. Whoa,
Cute hat. Thank you. Next, Monica. This is the Peter Bowers part of the, I think, plug-in electric vehicle program presentation.
Very good. And I think you'll be done hearing from me after this. So today I'm here to share with you our JEA Drive Clean strategy and give you a status update on our progress in doing so. Earlier in 2014, JEA developed our JEA Drive Clean strategy. It's a plan focused on supporting the benefits both economically, environmentally, and for our customers with plug-in electric vehicles. Sorry about that. The market for plug-in electric vehicles is growing. It is still a very small market. Our goal is to be on the front end and be a part of helping drive and build that market for Northeast Florida. Our JEA strategy was really focused on helping overcome what we found through our research to be the adoption barriers. Customer awareness of benefits, upfront costs, and then range anxiety. So I'll talk a little bit more about each of those. So first of all, education and awareness. This was the first step of our strategy. We began this in the spring of 2014, and we did this through social media, through communication with our customers, through local community events, and partnerships as well with local stakeholders. The second component of the strategy and barriers are upfront costs. Electric vehicles do have a slightly higher entry point into the market than gasoline vehicles do. Depending on the type of electric vehicle you choose, that difference is a bit more. So part of our education is helping customers understand the total cost of ownership. The fuel savings is about 1/3 of the cost of gasoline, and likewise there are less expenses towards maintenance, not needing to do oil changes and different items. There's a lot of incentives right now out there through federal incentives and now JEA's new rebates that we rolled out last month in that regard. And depending on the vehicle that you select, you can actually see a 1-year to a 4-year payback just in the reduction in costs of your total ownership. The third part of the strategy is range anxiety. This is really the component that we are still working on, and we do get a lot of questions on this, and this is around charging stations. One of the barriers to the market is, what if I run out? What if my battery isn't fully charged? I run out. Where can I plug in? Where can I reduce my vehicle? And so JEA is working on a plan with many of our community stakeholders to deploy charging stations throughout the community. I'm very happy to share that in partnership with the North Florida Transportation Planning Organization, JEA has received funding for 30 charging stations that we are working on right now with an RFP and a partnership and how we'll deploy that, with really our goal is to have charging stations throughout our service territory so that customers with electric vehicles don't have that range anxiety and know that there are different places that they can go. We also received word yesterday that we've been rewarded or awarded a fast charging station as part of Nissan's Advantage program, which is administered by NovaCharge in the state of Florida, and we'll be working to do that and have that as a demonstration as well for our customers. And so with this case, our plan right now, we have RFPs to go out, really forming what that partnership is going to look like, that deployment, the locations, and we're hoping around second, third, fourth quarter, we will be able to start deploying our charging station strategy. And so with that, that's really our focus. There was a lot of market research, talking to industries, talking to other utilities, and that's how we built our strategy. And I believe is Jeff Sheffield with us. There he is. Jeff is the Executive Director of the Transportation Planning and Organization and wanted to share just a few words about our partnership.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity. It's very exciting to be here. I think many of you probably aren't even familiar with who the TPO is. So this is a very non-traditional partnership for an organization like us. By way of a bit of background, we are actually formed through federal legislation, and our predominant role is setting priorities in all of the funding, federal funding for transportation improvements in the region. So for the better part of the last 30 years, it's been our board establishing all priorities and funding for those projects that you see the DOT building on a daily basis in the region. But we've had opportunities over the last several years to really expand some of our initiatives, particularly with some federal funds that come into the area. And we've been very fortunate to have a board which is made up of elected officials from our 4-county region, that is Duval, Nassau, Clay, and St. Johns, that have a similar vision to what we're trying to do on a regional scale. Alternative fuels is one of those, and I want to recognize a couple of individuals that you know of in your staff. Jay Worley, first of all. Jay came to us along with some folks from JCCI back in 2009. And really looked at some of our successes in building coalitions and really pitched the idea for us to start a Clean Fuels Coalition under the U.S. Department of Energy's program. It fit with what we were trying to do, and we thought it had some merit, and that's what we've been doing for the last several years, is bringing public and private entities together to have that conversation. Since then, the coalition has continued to grow. Peter King here as well has been a strong participant in the effort and is really aggressive in the EV portion of the effort now to establish what we can do. That said, we've had the opportunity to use federal CMAQ, congestion mitigation, air quality funds, to invest in various alternative fuel conversion opportunities for public fleets within the region. Most of our investments right now have been going into natural gas conversion for public fleets, but we had a real opportunity here to aggressively pursue the EV area. What we envision is larger scale, to be quite honest, than the JTA boundary. We see this as a regional effort for all of Northeast Florida, but we really thought that in order to develop the program right, the partnership with JEA provided that opportunity. It allowed us to provide the funding that we really think, with cost effectiveness, probably ends up more than 30 stations in the region. But that said, we're able to work together and create the model, the application process, the siting process, the criterion establishment, so that once we do this, as we seed more funding on a larger scale, we use this model across the board regardless of utility. So we're very pleased to be here and provide this opportunity and a very unique partnership for our organization.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. At this time, comments from the public. I see no cards. And our council liaison, former City Council President Bill Bishop, is not here, so we will move forward. Ladies and gentlemen, if you will look on your agenda, the consent agenda, as you will see, is Roman numeral 3.2. A2 has been removed, so I will ask for a motion of Roman numeral through A1 and 3 require action. 4 through 10 are provided for information. So I'll ask for a single motion to approve for the action items 1 and 3, showing that number 2 has been removed, and 4 through 10 for information.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, show it unanimous. Directly on. Strategic discussion action. At this point, we're going to have this part of the meeting will be about the Southside Generating Station request for proposal. We're going to have a discussion, presentation, and the possible award for negotiations. Colleagues, in your packet, hopefully that you will have some bullet points. No one likes to be read to, so I'm going to kind of go over the bullet points for my colleagues who have not had have had the long history of this. I'm going to read through this for the folks that are here, both in public, but also on Skype as well. Let me just provide some information regarding the history of Southside Generating. Southside Generating site was decommissioned in October of 2001. The site is a designated brownfield. JEA has performed extensive demolition, site investigation, and remediation of this site. JEA has offered the property for sale on 2 other occasions that did not culminate in a final sale of the property, and why we are here for the 3rd time. The current request for proposal. The current RFP for purchase of the property was posted on March 11th of this year, 2014. The proposal due date was extended to a final date of October 7th, 2014, while additional site information was being developed and provided to potential proposers, including a framework for enhancing the site's access. Ladies and gentlemen, as you will see from that there were 2 proposals to the RFP were received. Earlier today, as you know, the Evaluation Committee reviewed and scored the 2 proposals and provided the board with its factual finding, which you have that information in your book, regarding the 2 proposals for today's briefing. During the pre-board meeting, the order were presented at a random, and at that point, we will be hearing from Elements of Jackson will go first, and they will be the first to go forward. Let me now go over the rules of engagement for everyone that is here. The presentations are limited to information provided in the proposal submitted on October 7th. Each company will be provided 20 minutes. Again, let me kind of restate. At the end of, when you're at 18 and a half minutes, Melissa will hold up this yellow card. So that's it. You will have a minute and a half to look at that one. When you see the red card, whatever that word is, that's the last word. After each company has made the presentation, the board will have up to 15 minutes to ask questions of the presenters. Colleagues, again, you will be asking questions given the proposal that you will be hearing. After each side, after each side is presented, there will be up to 20 minutes that the board can ask clarifying questions, if any. They are limited to the content that was presented, content of the proposal, and factual finding of the evaluation committee. These time frames will be strictly enforced. Again, Melissa will notify us when there is a minute and a half after each time. I will bring the last word in wherever that is. I do want to, again, remind the colleagues is that when we get to the second set of questions, your questions are to be presented to one presenter, not in the situation as I heard what presenter A said. Could you say something? How will that affect presentation B? It will be directly to the presenter in that thing. After we have finished the clarifying questions, we will go into board discussions and deliberations. Colleagues, you have this in your book, but let me restate it one more time. The board, by motion and a vote, may choose one of the following 4 options. Number 1, approve a proposal for contract negotiations. 2, rank the proposals and approve negotiations with the second ranked proposal in the event negotiations do not proceed to closing with a top ranked proposal. 3, elect to take no action or request additional information. 4, reject both proposals. And we will that. So at this time, I'm going to call on John McCarthy, who is Director of Supply Chain Management, who will present for everyone here a summary of the evaluation. And following that presentation, after that, I will come back at the end of each proposals and remind before we vote of the 4 options that we have. John?
Yes,
I will
sir.
turn it over to you, and again, thank you to you and your committee for great work.
Sir, good afternoon. I'm going to restate a couple of the things you said, but I'm going to just provide a brief overview of JEA's RFP evaluation process for the purchase and development of JEA's Southside Generating Station site, the former Southside site. JEA published a solicitation for this work and received 2 proposals on 7 October 2014 from Elements of Jacksonville and Roca Point Partners. Proposers were required to document their experience and success in similar projects, including mixed-use and brownfield development, and the proposals were scored on a 500-point scale by JEA staff earlier this morning, with a pricing measure weighted at 200 points and qualitative measures weighted at 300 points. Elements of Jacksonville received a total score of 463 points out of the maximum 500 points, and Roca Point Partners received a total score of 385 points out of the maximum 500 points. Per the solicitation, the score of the JEA Evaluation Committee shall be used as a recommendation to the JEA Board of Directors, and the JEA Board may issue an award to the recommended firm or choose to make an award to a different firm based on its own application of the criteria set forth in the RFP. So that came directly out of the RFP. And that's all I've got.
Thanks, John. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I will ask for Elements of Jacksonville to make your 20-minute presentation. Welcome. And just for that, so that in case is the yellow light will be the in front of you will be the blinking, and the red is the last word. Welcome.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the board, Mr. Managing Director. We appreciate the opportunity to be here today. We're here to talk about arguably the most important piece of real estate in the city of Jacksonville. Not only will the development of this Southside Generating Station site transform the South Bank, but it'll also be a catalyst to help redevelop the North Bank as well. So we're very excited about the opportunity to talk to you about that today. I'd like to introduce you to the members of our team before we go any further. Peter Rummel, as many of you know, was a former chairman of the Disney Imagineering. He was also former chair of St. Joe Company, and he was the global chairman for Urban Land Institute. Real Capital Solutions is our capital partner, and they have a very strong national presence with several billion dollars of development. They also have a strong Jacksonville presence, which we feel to be important, with 6 projects currently being developed in Jacksonville, including the old San Jose on the river. That's one of their projects as well. So they have a very keen interest. They're very, very focused on the Jacksonville market. Dietrich Planning is owned by Laura Dietrich. She's our planner, team leader. Laura is a former planner for the city of Jacksonville. Nobody knows her way around City Hall better than Laura does, which we feel like will help us expedite this whole entire process. She also just recently completed writing the CRA for the city of Jacksonville and the DIA master plan, which will both somewhat govern the development that happens on this particular site. So we are very, very in touch with what's going to be happening there. Irvin, Levin, and Miller are our architects of record. They have developed many of the iconic structures that you see around Jacksonville. They've done several projects for me. They're a great team. We work very, very closely together. Their office is 2 blocks from the site. Kimley Horn, while they have a very strong national and international presence, they have probably one of their best offices here in Jacksonville, Florida, and they've won the national award of one of the top 100 companies to work for. So they're a very, very cohesive group as well. And then Doug Skiles is the owner of Envision Design. Doug and I have been friends for years. He's done a tremendous amount of projects for me, a lot of notable projects in Jacksonville. He's a former president of the San Marco Preservation Society, which is, I think, critical to this site since that's where it's located. And just most recently, Doug just was the driving force behind the redevelopment of San Marcos Square. So he's really done a nice job getting that put together for the community there. Let's talk about some of our projects here. Excuse some of these photographs. They didn't come out so well. We think our team has a tremendous amount of experience for a site like this. This is a portion of the Deerwood Lake development, which is a $200 million mixed-use development across the street from Tinseltown on Southside Boulevard. It won a State Award of Excellence from the state of Florida, and we're very proud of our award-winning projects. Peter and I both, just like the JEA, is very proud of the awards that they covered as well. This is the Kings Avenue Station project. This is at the terminus of the Skyway Express. It has been nominated for a Transit-Oriented Development Award. It's a $30 million project in Phase 1. It'll continue to grow. This project is two blocks away from the JEA generating site. And then this is the San Marcos Square project, which is a $70 million mixed-use project. It also won a national award from the Urban Land Institute for Downtown Development, and it is also 2 blocks away from the JEA site in the other direction. So our projects, we're all over the South Bank. Peter?
Thank you. The nice thing about this business is you get to take pictures of it. And I'm going to just continue this for a minute. And the only reason to do this is really to show that we understand how to deal with complicated and understand how to deal with waterfront. These happen to be, this is the Boardwalk Hotel at Disney. This is another one of the waterfront hotels at Disney. These are big, complicated things, and your site is a big, complicated thing. This is big and complicated, and this is not here. This is Disneyland Paris. Disneyland Paris is the core of a 5,000-acre new town east of Paris, which I ran the land acquisition, development, and construction of. So we understand how to do complicated. I spent 2 years dealing with the French. Hopefully you're not as complicated as that.
No guarantee.
another just big complicated waterfront hotel. This is the town of Celebration, which also was the Disney town, which has got numerous awards for the quality of what we did with it. It again this is the waterfront downtown of it. I think we understand this is the value and the sensitivity of waterfront, and I think it is one of the keys to doing this successfully. This is an aerial of Celebration, again, large scale, complicated, and that's what you're sitting on here. So pictures are one thing, but I'm going to be presumptuous here for a second and just we were trying to put ourselves in your place. If we had the opportunity you have to do something this bold and this big, I think there are some points that are important. This is a place, and this is going to be a place that's going to be a part of the fabric of this community for a very long time. And it is also key to lots of things going forward, so it's important that you get it right. We talk about healthy town, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, but there's a big idea here, and I can't overemphasize that. This is not just about bricks and mortar. This is about a big idea that developers all over the United States and all over the world are trying to do, and we want to do it first here in Jacksonville. I think that's important. If we're awarded this and able to do elements, this will be disruptive to the community development business. This is in a business that tends to copy itself over and over again. This is a new idea, and I just think that's so important to what we're doing here and how we're thinking about it. It also is an enormous stimulation to downtown development. I've had people argue with me that it's on the wrong side of the river for downtown. Downtown is downtown, and this is going to be a giant statement, and it will be as valuable on the North Bank as it is on the South Bank. The most underutilized asset in this city is the St. Johns River, and this is going to change that. This will celebrate the river, will celebrate everything that there is that's good about that river. We as a community have got to embrace it more, and this, I hope, will be an example of how you do that with smart development. That and the wellness, healthy town overlay that we're bringing to this, we think are the combination that will really make this different. So if you had the chance to do all this, wouldn't you do it? I think you would. And so we are presumptively taking that assumption that you want to do something that's big. We have absolutely minimized the risk. Between Mike and I, we've got, God only knows, 65 years of development experience, most of it mine, unfortunately, and it is a vitally important to take this new idea and make it happen. There are two important things about this site plan. One is this site plan was done. I can't tell you how much time we spent on this. It is complicated, and it is complicated because it's designed to look like it's been there. This is 15 years from now, this is going to look like it was done organically, not by one developer. And that's what makes it magic. That's what makes it special. This is not a classic sort of developer footprint, and it's not on purpose. And when you combine that with the wellness overlay that is going to be imbued in this entire thing and the deference to the river, then we think we've done something that is special.
So in addition to the things Peter just talked about, let's talk about jobs. This project will deliver over 2,500 permanent direct and indirect jobs, and it'll deliver over $8 million a year in ad valorem taxes, which is obviously a tremendous opportunity. So I know we talked about the price of the property as a factor into this, but when you figure that this property will start paying $8 million a year on top of that purchase price, then all of a sudden it's exponential what it can do for the community, and it's almost all net money to the city. But how do we get there? It's going to take a lot of knowledge about this site. This site is a complicated site, as we all know. This is the third go-round, and hopefully third time will be the charm. We feel very confident about that. It's going to take the ability to develop the site. The really unique thing about our team is that almost every single person on our team has been involved in this project at one time over the last decade, either as a consultant or working with the previous developers or attempting to purchase the property themselves, as Peter did. So we know this site better than anybody knows this site other than the JEA, and we'll be relying on you guys a lot to help us get through our process on that. So that's going to be a big important factor, we think, to getting the deal done and closed. The good news is JEA has done a terrific job of preparing the site for redevelopment. You guys have done the responsible thing, and that allows us to take the BISRA off your hands. We will take all, as you were told earlier, we will take all the risk from this point going forward, which is extremely critical to a project like this and extremely critical to JEA. You guys are not in the business to manage environmental properties, obviously. So we are prepared to take all of that. And our consultant, Kimley Horn, has an incredible track record when it comes to handling these sites. As a matter of fact, this is the Midtown Miami site, which Kimley Horn did, over $1 billion development. It's currently going on. It was the largest brownfield site in the state of Florida and one of the largest brownfield sites in the United States. And they won the Phoenix Award, and for those in the know, that is the most coveted award you can get in their industry. It is the creme de la creme award, so it's very prestigious, which just makes you know that these guys know what they're doing when it comes to this kind of stuff. So why our team? We think local presence is critical. To expedite the process, if nothing else, we've got people that when they walk down the halls of City Hall, they know everybody there. Our consultants are very plugged in. We're not zooming in once a month or once a quarter to see what's happening with our project. It allows us to be efficient, and that's really the critical portion of this thing is efficiency. You know, we've asked for what we think is a reasonable due diligence period, but if anybody can get it done quicker than that, we certainly can. We also know, like we said, that we have tremendous knowledge of the site, and our portfolio experience and capital will allow us to develop a world-class site that everybody in Jacksonville will be excited about, and other cities' chambers will come to our city to see what we've done here versus us going to there. Peter?
This is a graphic that's, I want to make two final points. This is a graphic that some of you know, it's called a word cloud. And it is designed to, the word in the middle is base camp, and all the words around it embellish that word. The big idea here is that this is a place for you and your family to live, and you will be healthier because of the lifestyle that we create. The heart and soul of that is this thing called base camp, which is about mind and body and spirit. And this is a new idea. This is the new way developers are going to add value to real estate. 40 years ago it was a golf course. I think for the next 15 or 20 years it's going to be health, and this is how people are going to do it. There are opportunities all around the country to do this, but we want to do the first one here. I think that's important. But at the same time that we're doing something that is revolutionary in terms of the big idea, it also has to be a place where you can live. It physically has to be a place where you can walk around and walk your dog, and you can be comfortable, and it has a physical environment that is comfortable. And these renderings are meant to say that this is a place, this is a town, there's a big idea here that is part of it, but it also is just a place where you live and work and go to the store and shop and enjoy your family. So we think we have combined the best of both worlds here. We understand physical development, we think, as well as anybody, and we understand the process of trying to introduce something new here, which we're very excited about. So with that, we will leave it and come back and answer questions in a little while. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Is it questions now or later?
Now.
Oh,
we have 15 minutes.
Yeah. Peter, just share the timetable in terms of the permitting, the development, the completion. Give me those dates again, please.
Mike and I are good partners because we each do certain things. That's him.
Okay, him. Go ahead.
We've asked for a one-year due diligence period. This is, like we keep saying, you've heard it, you know it. This is a complicated site. We don't want to go in with a very abbreviated process and then have to come back and ask you for more time because we know how this process works.
Okay.
I just got finished rezoning a property in Avondale, and it took over a year. It's complicated, and we know all the players, and I can tell you if it took us a year, it would have taken somebody else twice that long. And the people in this room that were part of that process will attest to that. So we try to be very reasonable and give you something that we know we can deliver on and not have to come back and ask for extensions. That's just not a good way for us to start.
Would you introduce yourself? You did do it at the beginning.
I apologize. I'm Michael Belanke with Chase Properties.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Question? One?
Mr. Rummel, is your concept somewhere? I heard of Canyon Ranch. Is that something similar to what you're trying to do, but just larger?
Well, thank you for that question. That is this will pick up where Canyon Ranch leaves off. Okay. Canyon Ranch is a spa that has forward integrated into wellness, but it's primarily a vacation experience. Mm-hmm. What we're really trying to do is take that attitude and that mentality and overlay it on a 365-day experience.
Okay. And I noticed that there are a lot of, when you call it a new town, is it, I don't want to kind of, are you trying to create a town within downtown? I don't mean to call it like that, but I just
that's another great question. We tend to call it a new town because it's a fairly large piece of property and we're going to do the whole thing. Yeah. But the success of it is if, as I said, 15 years from now, if it feels like it's always been there. So the goal is to have it just be the end of Hendricks Avenue, and it will migrate into the rest of the community. And likewise, one of the things that we intend to play up enormously is the Riverwalk. As a conduit for exercise and a conduit to get other places. So the whole idea here is to knit it together.
Okay.
Yes,
I do have one question. This is a huge undertaking, as you mentioned. Will you be doing or developing any other properties in parallel with the anticipated period, or do you anticipate taking on any other development projects of a similar size, and would it be of a similar nature with regards to this concept?
I think I won't speak for Mike because we do things not completely together, but I'll speak for myself and then he can speak for himself. This is, as I said, this is a big idea. I really think that after we make this work here, you could go do one of these in any city in the United States. I'm too old to do that. But I think there is. But I'm younger than Mike. That's right. But there is an opportunity. One of the reasons I want to do it here is because we want to get it right here, and it'll take tinkering. I can't tell you that it's going to be perfect on day one. The healthy town part of it, not the building part. That's the easy part. So there will be opportunities to do it other places, and whether we do that in a venture or do it in some other structure, I don't really know. But one of the cool things about this, and one of the things that I think is interesting to Jacksonville, is that this puppy has legs. Did I answer your question?
You did. Yes.
One other thing I want to comment on as well, and that is that this is going to be a fun place to live. I mean, we're talking about some novel concepts here. When you look at these pictures, you can see yourself living there. We're going to have fantastic boutique restaurants, fantastic boutique retail. Peter wants to build what he calls the coolest restaurant in the world, right there on the water. And bar. And so it's while we have a healthy fabric to the community, it's really just going to be a really cool place to live, as you can imagine. So, but to your other question about other developments, this will keep us busy. This is a big project. It'll keep us busy. Is there an opportunity that we may do something else too? I'm not going to lie to you and tell you I just won't look at anything else because I'm a developer and we look at these. But I will tell you this: I live in San Marco Place, which is 2 blocks from this site, and for the last 7 years since I moved there, I've been sitting on my balcony at happy hour every evening looking at this site, dreaming about what I would do to this site. And Peter came along with his vision. It's one of the most exciting opportunities. It is the most exciting development opportunity I've ever been in touch with, and we're not going to mess it up, I can tell you that. We're going to get it done right. Plus, two, all my friends that live in that area will kill me if we mess it up. So we
Any other questions?
Is there a plan for a hotel on this in your?
It is a potential.
It's a 200-room hotel.
Yeah.
Did you say a 200-room hotel?
Correct.
Earlier?
Okay. Yep. And we've got something exciting for that as well that we're working on.
Come in. Any other questions? You did make a comment which really struck a nice note, is that you talked about this as a complex site. Obviously, from where there's been a lot of thought that went into that. For those of us who have been dealing with this site for better than 20 years, can you kind of give us a little understanding of how your team looked at the complexity? For many years, we thought it was just 40 acres. It's not. There's a whole lot of stuff within that 40. Can you kind of just walk through and give us an idea of your understanding of the complexity and the sensitivity that you talked about in putting the proposal together?
Let me answer it in three elements, and then I'll ask Mike to chime in. It's complicated because the horizontal land is complicated by the environmental issues. It's complicated because building something like this, just physically, vertically, is complicated, particularly when you want to do it not at the same time, but as sequentially as you can. So just making the puzzle come together is complicated. The third is the overlay of the Healthy Town, which is new, and we're going to have to work with it. So you've got horizontal, vertical, and the idea overlay, each of which is complicated on its own. You put them all together, and it's three-dimensional math.
There's also a lot of complicated issues due to the access. We've been engaged with the other property owners on the South Bank, the hotel owners, which is an investment company that purchased the hotel, and then Steve Pardue, who still owns the property around the hotel, and then we've met extensively with the board and the superintendent of the Duval County School Board. We understand the complicated issues that are surrounding it. I helped Case Pomeroy with that issue when they had the property under contract back a decade ago. So we are keenly aware of that. We understand that as cool as this development is, it should be part of a bigger picture. We think that whole South Bank should be master planned. We would recommend that the DIA oversee that. That way it's not piecemeal. You don't want to take a piece of property that's this important and do a patchwork job with it. It needs to be integrated, and like Peter said, it needs to look like it just was organically grown and it was done with the highest and best uses in mind and the highest quality development possible. So, that's where it's complicated. But if he can do Disney Paris, he can do this. Okay, I can promise you 5,000 acres in France is more complicated than this is by a long shot.
Mr. Chairman? Yeah, just looking at the diagram again, I know at one point we talked about parks. I don't recall hear anything about parks. What kinds of parks have you talked about? Are you talking about?
There's a riverfront park. There's a main. Do you have a site plan there?
I've got so many pieces of paper here.
It's about halfway back.
Okay.
Here we go. I can show it to you.
Riverfront Park?
Yeah.
There we go. There's a riverfront park,
Okay.
which I believe, Russ, is that 4 acres? Almost 4 acres. And then, like Peter, there's some pocket parks around there as well. And like Peter has said, we want to integrate with a Riverwalk and make that become part of our park system, if you will.
So that's where you would have the putting green on the riverfront park, huh?
That's it. Exactly right. Yeah. And that's your unit right next to the putting green.
I walked right into that one.
Is that here public?
That's public.
Public, yeah.
That's an important point Mike and I meant to make earlier. This is not a gated community. This whole thing is public. So if you got your sandwich from Panera on Hendricks, you could walk up here, or if you got your sandwich here, you could walk down. This is not closed off in any way, and that's a public park.
The last thing I'll say is I think this is a tremendous opportunity to create a legacy out of a brownfield site. We anticipate winning a lot of awards with this particular site based on what we intend to do with it, and I think that could be a great legacy for the JEA as well.
One of the things, and again, just kind of state for the record, is I heard as you were going that you took a year for the due diligence. Maybe I should have put my two statements together. Is because of the complexity of the proposal is the reason that you are doing the time frame for the due diligence. I'm not trying to lead them. I'm trying to understand, and I probably should have connected those two questions together to begin with.
We think the entitlements are going to be what drives the due diligence. If from an order of magnitude, they built the Empire State Building in 13 and a half months. They were designing it as they were building it. So, we can and will be doing some of those types of things. Once we get our feet on the ground and we understand what the entitlement process, looks like and the direction it's going, and take the pulse of the council and the other people we know on staff, land use and zoning people that we have relationships with, we'll start getting comfortable that we're going to get the approvals, and we'll start the design process as soon as it makes economic sense to do that. I don't know if that answered your question.
It is in our economic best interest to do it as quickly as it's prudent. Right. There's no virtue to waiting.
We want to turn dirt the day we close.
Got it. Yep. I wanted to clarify.
Absolutely.
Have you clarify that?
Absolutely.
Any other questions from the group? Any other questions? Then we will have. Right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. This time we will hear from the Rococo Point Partners. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. My name is Steve Diebenow. I'm here on behalf of the developer, Roca Point, and their financial partner, the Georgetown Company. And if I could, I'm going to take just a few minutes to introduce them to you, the main players in each of these companies. First, Patrick Leonard. Patrick Leonard is a civil and environmental engineer. He's been in the commercial real estate business for over 20 years. Before he was at Roca Point, he was at Everbank and was working on their $800 million portfolio of loans that they purchased and that were guaranteed by the FDIC. Phil Mays. Phil is also with Roca Point. He has over 20 years of commercial real estate experience. Gainesville, Florida native, double gator, went to Florida for undergrad and for law school. He also was with Everbank previously, right before Roca Point. Some of you may remember him. He was appointed by Governor Christ to be county commissioner in St. Johns County for 3 years to fill the to fill a term that was vacated by a county commissioner. He was also a member of the TPO, and so he has intimate knowledge. Although he lives in Atlanta today, he lived in our community for almost a decade. And then finally, Nena Lynch, who's with the Georgetown Company. Nena is a Rhodes Scholar who graduated from Villanova University, and she's a New York City native. She has 10 years of commercial real estate experience. After she finished her time in Oxford, she began work at Goldman Sachs, and then most recently, before she joined the Georgetown Company, she spent almost 6 years as a senior economic development advisor to Mayor Bloomberg in New York. These are the folks that would be responsible for delivering this project, the one that we're going to talk about here shortly. And I want to give you some contrast between the proposals. The first thing I want to mention is that in the areas of what I'll call vision, which is project experience, the proposed use, the boardwalk, the environmental, the river walk, the team scored exactly the same. So the mixed-use development and the theory and the theme for development and delivering a fantastic project for the community, the scoring committee recommended identical scores on all of those accounts. But there were a couple of differences, and I'm going to highlight some of those for you. And what I think, again, trying to put myself in your position, you really have a couple of different questions that you're asking yourself. First of all is, do you want to sell the property? And the fact that you've gone through this enormous process probably answers that. It's likely that that is something that the board would entertain doing, and that is selling the property. And then the second one, I think you touched on in your pre-agenda meeting about the vision and what would be best for the community. As I mentioned, the committee, the scoring committee, ranked these proposals virtually identical, in fact identical on that count. But then the other category, and what really goes to your fiduciary duty as board members, is what's the certainty of closing, and what's the certainty that something will happen? And in the context of the RFP itself, there were a couple of criteria that I'm going to touch on. The first one is on financial capability, and then the second one is on price. Now, first of all, on price, there's a stark difference. Roca Point and Georgetown bid $6 million less, and so there's a stark difference in the price. But what is dramatically different are the terms under which that proposal was made, and we're going to talk a little bit about that here in just a moment. The other one is on financial capability, and I think the scoring committee really missed this one. There was actually an 8-point difference between Roca Point score and the Elements Group. And really it was based on the strength of a single individual financial statement. As you'll hear later on, Roca Point and Georgetown have developed over $5 billion worth of projects. They have $2.5 billion of projects under development right now. And in the last 140 days, they've closed on over $235 million worth of real estate for all cash. And the notion that there is a disparity between the two groups in terms of financial capability, I really think the committee missed that. Now, in and of itself, that is just one factor. The other factor, obviously, is price. But let me tell you where Georgetown and Roca Point did succeed. They actually were scored the highest on being the shortest time to close and the fewest contingencies to close. And so what you have here is a pretty stark choice. You have a group that is not only funded internally, that is, they're not relying on a third party. Georgetown is an owner of Roca Point, and they are basically, I think you'd call them a managed affiliate. Their funds are coming directly from within their own entity, whereas the Elements Group is relying on a third party for funding. Doesn't seem like a big difference, but as was discussed in the original, in the pre-agenda meeting here, Director Bauer, you mentioned that what happens if the economy turns, which really takes me to my next point, which is that Roca Point and Georgetown are proposing to close 9 months sooner. In fact, their investment in this property will happen in this fiscal year for the JEA, and also is a much shorter window. And so I would ask yourself, how much do you want to gamble on the economy? How much do you want to take the risk that additional time might be required for another group to close? And are you willing to let that risk of moving into the next fiscal year, is that worth the trade-off in the financial difference of the proposers? Another example of the difference in the financial capabilities or the financial proposals is that Roca Point Georgetown actually proposed putting up a deposit that became hard at a certain point during the due diligence, which means that that if all of the things happen that they think are going to happen, their money goes hard and they aren't getting a free look anymore at the property. On the other hand, the Elements Group really doesn't speak to a deposit in their proposal, and I think that's indicative. Now, it may not seem like a big deal. You all may ask him later in the presentation, hey, will you put up $100,000 and agree to some form of a deposit? I'm sure the answer will be yes, but I think the starting point for this conversation is that the financial strength of Roca Point and Georgetown and their ability to close more quickly is something that should weigh heavily on this board's mind as they make the decisions today. Final point I want to make is regarding the road access. Roca Point and Georgetown have given you a site design that utilizes the right-of-way access that the JEA staff has already procured with the JTA and the school board and the city. And that was not an easy task. In fact, it's taken, you've probably delayed your RFP, I don't know, at least 6 or 8 months, maybe 6 months, for that access issue to be worked out. Elements on the other side has a different plan for access. So if you're thinking about who's going to close more quickly with less contingencies and who has more certainty to close, and Georgetown, Roca Point is proposing to use the access plan that already exists, and the other group is not, I think you can see where I'm going. There's a risk of a delayed closing just because of the difference in the access plans. And even more importantly is that Roca Point and Georgetown are actually going to pay for the access. That really wasn't spoken to at all in the proposal from Elements as well. Let me quickly summarize then the key elements of the offer that Roca Point and Georgetown made. $12 million cash at closing, no financing requirement. We've already talked about the due diligence period, which adds up to about 210 days total. It's a clean offer, meaning all things being equal, this group will close. Really, the only two things they want to make sure is that they get development rights from the city and that they get the zoning that's required. Those are really the only contingencies that they have in their proposal. They're going to take over all the environmental monitoring. They're going to take over the bulkhead repair and restoration. They're going to construct the required access. They're going to work with the city to design the South Bank Riverwalk and the park. And then they obviously have the financial strength to acquire and develop the property. I'm going to pause here and let Nana tell you a little bit more about Georgetown Company. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Steve. So my name is Nena Lynch, and I'm the Director of Development at the Georgetown Company, and I want to thank the Evaluation Committee and board members for hosting us here today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Georgetown Company and why we're here, and then I'm going to hand it over to Phil and Patrick, who are going to talk more about the particulars of the proposal. There are 4 things that I hope to communicate today. One is Georgetown's track record. The second is our approach to development. The third is our capacity. And the fourth is how selective we are about the projects that we do. And I'm going to touch on why I think that's important. So let me start with who are we? So we were founded in 1978 by Marshall Rose, who remains chairman of the company. And we are currently led by Adam Flato, who's been with the company for more than 20 years. So we not only have longevity, but we have continuity. We are a national company. We are headquartered in New York, but we have offices in LA, Columbus, Ohio, DC, and of course our Southeast-based affiliate in Atlanta. We work across all types of real estate. Most pertinent to this project, we have experience doing mixed-use development, master planned communities, and we've also done each of the component parts, so office development, residential development for sale, and residential retail development. So we have experience with all the component parts of a mixed-use development. Currently, we have over $2.5 billion worth in assets under management, and we are in the process of developing 2 million square feet in various markets across the country. So we are active, and we have our finger of the pulse of what's going on. But what are we about? I think that's really sort of what you want to know. So we were founded with the intention of staying small, with the purpose of being selective about what we do. So we love complicated projects where we can make a big impact. We are known for our award-winning work. And I'm going to just touch on a couple of projects that you see on the screen here that are pertinent, I think, to the project we're talking about today. So in the lower left-hand corner is the world headquarters of IAC, Interactive Corporation, an internet and media company. This was a brownfield redevelopment. We worked with the world-renowned architect Frank Gehry to develop it. It's on the far west side of Manhattan, overlooking the Hudson River, and we won brownfield awards for this ground-up development. The second project that I just want to highlight is our project in Easton, Ohio, which is in Columbus, Ohio. This is a project that is 1,300-acre project that we started in 1994. We've developed over 9 million square feet, and we've done it, and it's a complete master plan community. So we have, and we've won various awards for Best Office Park, Best Master Plan Community, Top 5 Mall in the world. And there's various components: town center, power center, entertainment, public space, you name it, we have it. And this was all greenfield development. So I think it's really pertinent to what we're talking about today. But my favorite award that we won on this project is Best Restroom in America. And I think it's sort of funny, but the reason I bring it up is because I think it speaks to the attention to detail that Georgetown brings to our projects. If we're known for 2 things, one is integrity, and the second is quality, high quality. This project has broken records, highest grossing retail stores, highest grossing hotels, visitation records. It's really done phenomenally well, and it was made from nothing. So, and so this, I think, goes back to my earlier point about the importance of being selective. We are selective because when we do things, we do them right, and we are committed and in for the long haul. So why are we here? We're here because we see a lot of potential in Jacksonville. In fact, we've been looking for the right opportunity for a while. We've made bids on other properties in the area. And secondly, we believe in our partners. We think the combination of our experience with their local knowledge and expertise is a really strong combination. So we're super excited to be here, and thank you for the time.
Thank you.
My name is Patrick Leonard with Roca Point Partners. As we said, our design is fairly similar. They have a very good design as well. We really like their concept. It's a very similar concept, mid-rise buildings, waterfront, active lifestyle, restaurants, multifamily, for sale, for rent, multi-generational. We really like the location for the concept. I think what's different between ours and theirs, obviously their price is a lot higher because their density is a lot higher. We underwrite things all day, every day across the country. Nena has an entire team that underwrites deals. We have looked at this deal for over a year. You guys have provided an enormous amount of feasibility material to us. I myself am a civil engineer and environmental engineer, so I am very, very comfortable with the site. We understand the risks and the challenges, and there are risks and challenges, but the closing time for us is not unrealistic that we proposed. It's actually a long closing time compared to most of what we do. The big difference in density is to get the 800 units, that's a little bit of a stretch in the current Jacksonville market and the current economy. And we underwrite stuff all over the country, and we came up with a price that's commensurate with the current economy. The required capital investment, it's our money. We put it in. We want to be prudent with our money and the absorptions relative to the market. And so, again, obviously our project has a lower density, but we think it's a fantastic project. It's a very similar project. We're going to have the restaurants. We're going to have the retail. We're going to have the waterfront. We're going to have the parks. Again, relative to the terms, we have the access. We have the waterfront access. We have the town center. We have the fountains. We have architectural features. We think it's a great project. We love the location. Myself, again, I was with Everbank for several years during the recession. I underwrote billions of dollars worth of them. We handled billions worth of distressed real estate. We know distressed real estate well, and we know good real estate. And again, Georgetown does great real estate. And again, for their capital investment, we feel this project would be very successful. But again, it's based on what we believe to be realistic absorptions. And I'm going to turn it over to Phil.
I'm Phil Mays with Roca Point as well. As was Patrick, formerly at Everbank as well, right down the street. And I've met many of the folks in the room through my former life in politics in St. Johns County. But I think that our group's covered the proposal fairly well. I'm not sure in the last year and a half or so that I've actually worked on a deal, and we've underwritten many, many deals and closed a lot of deals even in the last 6 months, where there's been a disparity of one group being a third of the price higher than the other. And there obviously is probably several reasons for that, but I found that very interesting here. For Georgetown Roca Point, and I think Ned explained it pretty well, Georgetown is the controlling partner of Roca Point. We're the southeastern affiliate for Georgetown. We will not put an offer on a property that we don't have cash in the bank to close. So we always make sure of that. We actually, just 2 months ago, closed a deal with Everbank that was quite a bit pricier than this. We have a group that successfully worked together on numerous projects over the last 35 years, over $5 billion worth of development, over $2.5 billion in the portfolio right now. Having lived here for about a decade, I think the bottom, and having gone to many Jags games, been downtown many times, sat on the TPO and gone to that office many times, and done a lot of the transportation here, especially during the recession. A big thing to me, and I would think to the folks at Jacksonville, is you actually want this deal done, and you want this deal built. The projects are extremely similar. Your working staff on the pre-board meeting confirmed that. So I think it's a situation where you want a situation where you have a closing and the deal is actually built. That's what we do. We buy deals, we execute them, we build them, and they get done. And I think with that, I'll leave it to Steve to wrap up.
Thank you very much, Phil. So I think you can see the stark difference in the two proposals. And the way I would characterize it is that you have a proposal that has the ability to close sooner, although at a lower price. It's money that would be able to be available for the JEA this fiscal year as opposed to next fiscal year. And also it's a development plan that can be developed in this economic cycle. And that's really important as well. The last thing that I know that the board wants to see is a project that would take so long that maybe we miss this cycle and it only gets partially built or a third built, or maybe it doesn't even start because of a turn in the economy over the next year or 18 months. And so I think that really is the choice for you today. I think you have two outstanding groups, but I think you have one that has maybe a little bit more certainty to close a little bit more quickly and maybe at a lower price. On the other hand, they have, as they described in the amount of dollars and the number of projects, they have an incredible track record over the last 35 years. And I think that Jacksonville would benefit from having that outsider's view, that view from a group that's developed in all of these other fabulous markets. But also, for those of you who don't know, Columbus, Ohio, just a little bit smaller than Jacksonville. It's the 15th biggest city in the United States, about 400,000 people. Very similar market to Jacksonville. And the success story that Nana was so passionate about can be brought here to Jacksonville as well. And we really appreciate the opportunity, Mr. Chairman. Look forward to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Questions from colleagues?
One question.
Yes.
Steve, were you surprised when you saw the price per acre of elements?
I have two answers to that question. One is, well, yes, and I have two reasons why. One is, as some of you know, I've been involved in several attempts to underwrite this property, and that price is almost double the most recent estimates that folks that I've worked with in the past have talked about offering on the property. I was extremely surprised by the price. Secondly, when I was trying to think, it was asked in the pre-agenda meeting for comps, and as I was thinking about other closings in Jacksonville, you all may recall that an industrial piece of property just closed on the north side. It's a piece that's going to be used for a liquefied natural gas plant. And that project closed, and it was at $325,000 or $326,000 per acre for an industrial piece of property on the water for a $100 million plus development. So that they're coming in almost double that, to me, is very aggressive. So yes, it's a long answer to your question, but yes, I was surprised.
Thank you.
Questions? Yes.
Can someone on the team explain what's meant by content-sensitive catalyst for a vibrant 24-hour city?
Well, yeah, I think actually I wrote that. Context sensitive. So it's context sensitive. So for example, anyone that would propose building an amphitheater here would not be sensitive to the context, of the surrounding uses. And for those of you that have been here for a while, that was maybe a proposal at one time. But in any event, it's just saying that the development is going to take advantage of the characteristics of the environment around it. It's going to fit in, and it's going to feel like it's always been there.
Questions? Motion is on the table.
When do we get an opportunity to address some of the financial comments made about the other group?
You will ask them when they're back up.
Okay, good.
If you have a clarifying question of what
I do, yes, okay.
Any other questions for?
I do.
Yes. No.
In looking at the site plan, in considering the densities, where do you expect people to park?
Well, I think the parking is all structured parking that's incorporated into the development itself.
Okay. All right, I wasn't sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
The only other thing I'd add, well, anyway, that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Questions? Okay. Fine. All right. We've now moved to the part of clarifying. We have up to 20 minutes. So if there is a clarifying question that you would like to ask of one of the proposals, this would be, please name which one that you would like to have come to the podium.
Both of them. It doesn't matter, Mike. I just want to, the three things.
We have 20 minutes.
Okay, I won't take that long. The three things you mentioned: the certainty of closing, the financial capability, and the funding. Those are three issues that would raise concern, and those are the three of the issues that they raised. So, your comments or response to that, please.
Well,
First
back
being
to
certainty of closing, financial capability.
Okay, let me just clarify. Is your question needs to be directed at what they have said, which I think if you go back is they said they would be up to a year. So the question is not as opposed to what the other person said. You're asking them on their proposal.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So, as Steve knows, some of these zonings take a long time. Steve represented me on a zoning in Avondale that we just had that took over a year. This may go faster, but that was the advice that we got from our council, that we should ask for a year. We are very good. I've never lost an entitlement ever in Jacksonville, not once. The reason why is because we don't ask for things that we shouldn't be granted. We are very proud of our track record. We are very proud of our relationships that we have with the city planning department and with the land use and zoning, and certainly with the city council members. We can pick up the phone and have a conversation with any city council member at any time. Nobody can expedite this process faster than we can, and I think that goes without saying. As to our ability to close and as far as our capital is concerned, as Peter said, we've collectively been doing this for 65 years. He's been doing it for 40. I've been doing it for 25. We've built a combined of easily over $5 billion worth of projects, probably a number bigger than theirs, not only around America but around the world with the different projects we've done. We have funding committed and ready to go right now. We've got $250,000 in man-hours already invested in this RFP process. So we are vested in this process. For somebody to challenge our ability to close, when you look at the projects, we have $100 million worth of projects surrounding the site within 2 blocks. And then the list just goes on and on when you start looking at all the other things we've done. So I don't think that it's really fair to challenge our ability to close. I understand that that's something that people would like to make an issue of, but there is no issue there. And we can put you in touch with people in this city, like Herb Payton, who we've purchased land from, like Chester Skinner, the Skinner family, who we've purchased land from, like Gerald Rosenbaum, who we've purchased land from, like John Baker, Florida Rock, that we've purchased land from. And all these people will tell you we're closers. When we commit, we get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Clarifying question for, yes, sir.
Question. The issue of density has been raised a couple times as a possible reason for the difference in price. And just for me, a layman, could you point out a property that would have a similar density to the one that you have planned here and address the issue of parking, congestion, traffic flow, that time associated with it? Because, I can't look at this and make that, but I'm sure you can. Could you help me out there?
We'll try and think of a comp. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but let us think about one. But the problem with an entitlement process is you got to go through it. The positive side of an entitlement process is that it is formula ridden and requires that things like parking and ingress and egress and traffic flow and so on and so forth are taken care of and accounted for, and that there will be parking garages here. This won't be all just surface parking. But the things like dealing with DOT in terms of ingress and egress are formulaic, and we know we can qualify for those and be within comfortable, livable standards, or we wouldn't have done this to begin with. This number was not put here. We were sort of, it was sort of implied that we were naive here. We are not naive. We're not naive about price. We're not naive about things like density. This is appropriate for this site. It will live like a real place, but it will work, which was your point.
It's not of the same scale, but Deerwood Lake would be a comparable analysis, which is across the street from Tinseltown. It's got all the same components for the most part that this does. But I think to Peter's point, Peter was the worldwide chairman of Urban Land Institute. For those of you who don't know what ULI is, it's the worldwide clearinghouse for real estate curriculum. And Peter's the worldwide chair. He's gone around the world speaking about sustainable development and healthy places in the last couple of years. I helped found the Jacksonville chapter of the Urban Land Institute, and I'm a student of their teachings as well. So when we tell you what our proposal looks like, it's not just we wake up in the morning and say, hey, let's do 1,200 units here. As a matter of fact, Case Pomeroy had this project, as you well know, under contract. They were projecting 2,000 units. We said that's too much on the site. We analyzed it with our team, and we feel very comfortable that it's a deliverable number, and we feel very comfortable that we'll be able to deliver a variety of price points, which is critical to a multi-generational development like we're proposing here. We want to see, young couples with baby strollers, and we want to see my 93-year-old aunt living in this community, which makes it very urban and very cool. And so you have to have a variety of price points, which helps when you have enough density to pull that off.
And both for sale and for rent.
And both for sale and for rent product, yes, apartments and condominiums.
How about public access?
Public access is, I think, incredible. You've got multiple arteries into this property. Obviously, the Prudential access has been the main artery into this access. You will now have public access through the Riverwalk to this, and then the new proposed boulevard that goes down Broadcast Place, which has been part of the proposals and part of your addenda that have been submitted to us, we think is a game changer. With the Overland Bridge, I-95, exit ramps coming in right there at Atlantic Boulevard and Kings Avenue, that will probably become the primary entrance into the site in the future, because people can access in and out of I-95 so easily versus having to get off and go through the Baptist Hospital route.
Where will they park?
There'll be a tremendous amount of parking, built-in structured parking on the site, and then overflow parking will be able to utilize the Kings Avenue garage, which wouldn't that be nice if we get some revenue out of that?
Just try to see how it fits in with the community, that's all.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
You want to? The permanent, the direct and indirect jobs, and then the annual construction jobs you mentioned here. Direct and indirect. Is indirect full-time? Is direct full-time, or do those jobs go away after a while? I know the construction jobs go away after a while. I just want to be clear on that.
Those are permanent full-time jobs. And those numbers are from a REMI model, which for those of you who are familiar with the REMI model, it's a national standard. If you're just looking to create a job number, you pay an economist and say, here's my target number, back into that number. When you're doing a REMI report, they don't want to know what your target number is. They say, what are you building? I'm going to tell you how many jobs you're going to create. It's considered the gold standard. So those are real numbers there.
Okay. No?
Yeah, I have questions for Reverend.
Okay. Any other questions clarifying for this one? No others?
I have a clarifying question for the
Other
second group.
Okay. Thank you all. Steve? Clarifying.
Same question that I just asked about public access and parking. In other words, trying to get a sense of how this fits in with the broader area.
Can we put the photo back up or the slide?
Sure.
Where do I, is it this? Oh, okay. I'll get away.
You wish.
Can I
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Why are you looking for the slide?
Why?
Yeah.
Can I just ask a question? Have you done an analysis on the potential job creation for your project?
Yeah, there was a lot of discussion about that in the scoring meeting earlier today. Order of magnitude, the projects are very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the biggest difference is that they had a detailed model and that we did not. But I think it was fair to say that the committee, I think there might have been a 1 or 2 point difference in that particular scoring criteria. But it was mainly because it was mainly because there was a difference in the way the data was presented. But order of magnitude, it's along the same size of an impact. On the open space, let me see if I can, right here, is that it? Okay. On the open space, you can see, similar plan. You've got a promenade that runs right down the middle of the development, as well as a waterfront park, a linear park, with an extension of the Riverwalk. Overall, it's about 3 acres of open space, and with lots of access, perpendicular access to the river. The parking, obviously, being structured, saves on the floor area ratios of the development. It's not just a sea of parking. In other words, it's actually development that's on top of the parking. So that's, again, I hope that answers your question, but very similar to the previous presentation.
Steve, I don't think I understood the answer, but let me ask it. In terms of talking about jobs, direct and indirect, do you have a number? You said you gave some language, but I don't know. Is it 50% of what they're proposing, or is it 50% more or less, or just curious?
No, I've got the.
We can only own present.
It's probably about 75% of what they're proposing, because again, it's kind of a function of expenditures. and density. So
Then, okay, so it's comparable.
it's comparable based on size of project.
Okay, good.
Clarifying question? Yes, sir.
Yes, I'd like to follow up. I asked a question about density because you stated that you were surprised, right, at the price, which was a direct derivative or function of the density they proposed. Do you agree with the assessment or their evaluation of the ability to handle the density that is proposed?
No,
It's-
that's not.
You can't
You
ask
can
that.
only. It's a clarifying question on their proposal.
On
You
that.
can't compare. Ask them to compare theirs to someone
Okay.
else.
Well, maybe I can
That
talk
we
to the
put it
density
in a
on my.
different way. Yes.
Maybe I can talk to the density on my development.
Yes, yes.
That's
if
right.
you could.
I mean,
Thanks.
We don't. We don't need it.
Yeah, no, I understand. You know, again, we've done a thorough analysis. The goal here, obviously, is to deliver a project that can be developed during this economic cycle. And so the density that we've proposed, we think is achievable, and we're obviously trying to close more quickly so that we can actually start building and developing the project in a little bit more expeditious way, which gets to the fundamental difference. And listen, if you could wave a wand right now and take 18 million versus 12 million or whatever the difference is in the numbers, all things being equal, that's definitely what this board should do. What you guys need to ask yourself is whether you're comfortable with potentially 9 months or more to close, whether or not you're comfortable relying on a third party funding the development as opposed to a dedicated or in-house funding source, and also an unknown access plan versus a plan that's well-known and matches what your staff's already put together. I mean, the bottom line is we're at a lower price because we're taking on more risk. I mean, that's how I would characterize it. I don't know that density is as big of a function. It's a part of the answer. But at the end of the day, we're taking more risk, and that's why our price is lower. And so you have to decide as a board if you're willing to take the time and take the risk and go through the entitlement and wait a little bit longer to get more money.
Any other clarifying questions to? Nothing from this side? Anything from over here? Thank you all.
Thank you, Chairman.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, we will go back to our agenda. At this point, let me kind of restate where we are. If you all will now look, we have 4 options before us. Approve a proposal for contract negotiations. Rank the proposals and approve negotiations with the second-ranked proposal in the event negotiations do not proceed to closing with a top-ranked proposal. Elect to take no action or request additional information. Reject both proposals. So we can do it of one of 2 ways. We can have an open discussion, or for the sake of we follow rules of parliamentary procedure, we can make a motion, ask for a second, and have discussion on, and then use that as a way to go at it. Mr. Chairman.
I'll start, Mr. Chairman. First of all, thanks to all the participants. The fact that at some point that spot's going to look different than it looks now, which is gratifying, and all the work that the staff put into it as well. Looking at all this material, what's quite a bit of material, I'm intrigued with the healthy town concept, first in Jacksonville, and maybe it has legs and prototype side. Also, the local presence, the knowledge of the folks who on that team have at the site, the knowledge to have the portfolio and experience, and the capital thing. I'm comfortable with the funding thing, so that doesn't concern me. So I would, I'm not certain, I would propose a contract negotiation, but I also would like to think that if we did that, but if the second-ranked proposal not be out of the realm, so in the event for protection for us. So that's kind of my wordy thoughts.
Is that a motion? Is that a motion?
Yes, that's a motion.
Second.
Second. Okay, you have the motion and the second. Let me restate it, is that I think the motion was that for discussion is that you would go with the healthy, with elements of Jacksonville, do some, and if that if the end wouldn't work out, then there would probably be some, as a backup plan, the second one.
That's better stated than yes,
Okay.
sir.
Discussion on the proposal, on the motion and this, on the motion. Yes, ma'am.
Never mind. I think I just answered my own question.
Did you second? Yes, she seconds. Yes, Lisa second. Yes.
I'm not that worried about it not closing. To be honest with you, I think if it didn't close in 5 years, 10 years' time, this property is going to do nothing but increase in value. This is a extremely well-positioned piece of property. If it was in New York City, it'd be $1 billion. And I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. And we can't support those kind of prices around here. But if it doesn't close, it doesn't hurt us. We don't need the money right now. Financially, we're fine. Whether we close in the current fiscal year or a subsequent fiscal year, I don't think matters as much as getting a project that is worthy of Jacksonville and is something we can all be proud of and say that it helped move the city forward. So I'm for the Elements project, and that's how I'm going to vote.
Lisa?
I thought of another question. This is a comment. I think our evaluation committee did a lot of work, and they did this at a granular level that I think we need to be sensitive to the scoring that came out of that committee. And I think that further supports the Elements group.
Any other?
Yeah,
Yes.
Mr.
Belenky.
You know, he raised an interesting point, which ultimately, in my mind, is a double-edged sword. The group has $100 million worth of projects surrounding the area, and it's a double-edged sword because they know the area, but that's a lot of risk in one small, relatively small area. And I live in Springfield, and I've seen that lovely frame of a building on the riverfront for as many years as it's been there, and I would hate to see that happen to JEA's piece of property. So that's a concern. I like the project. I like both projects, but for this particular one, that's something to talk to.
Yeah. Helen, I don't think that they have any current risks in projects that have already been completed. I mean, those things are done, paid for. People have bought the condos or whatever it is. They're not at risk.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going back to Peter's comment about in the event that there's no closing. I'm not hard and fast on that, so I can be palatable on that. That's not a big issue.
Any other comments? Yes.
First, I'd like to also echo former chair's comments about I appreciate the due diligence and work that's going on both of the proposals. And also, it's sitting up here, I appreciate the straightforward answers that you were able to deliver it in a way that even I can understand it. So you had your work cut out for you, and you did a great job. Also, would like to echo Peter's comments. We've been sitting on this for about 15 years or longer, and I don't think any delay is going to tip over the apple cart. So the concern about the time or frame, the window, is not a big concern to me either.
Any other comments? I'd like to go last. Thank you. One minute to thank both presenters. A lot of thought has gone into this. The amount of sweat equity and expertise that went into this, I think, is extraordinary. And I want to appreciate, and I know that this is, and let me just say, for the sake of sitting up here, both groups, you do this for a living. There's a skill set that each group has that I'm not sure that any of us up here would have a clue, nor the experience or the vision that you have. And so I'm just saying the obvious. It must be in some ways we're talking about being given something here on a short period of time, and us to make what would be a multi-million-dollar decision on something that you heard thousands of man-hours to put in. but that is the process that we use. But I want you to know it does not go without that sensitivity and appreciation for the work that you have done. I'd like to make a couple of comments on this one, and let me first start with, we've been at this for more than 20 years. I have a couple things on the due diligence. I'm glad to hear the fact is that, one, time is money, and I think that we need to consider that. But I think with the folks that are involved with Elements of Jacksonville, they want to get it right, and that was the part that I wrote down in my notes. I do know that the 7 of us that sit here represent probably, Paul, there are probably been 40, 45 board members who have been a part of this piece of land. It belongs to our ratepayers, and we want to get it right, not just the 7 of us. We want to get it right for the ratepayers. We want to get it right for the board members. Over the years have said, what are we going to do? Who made the decision to dismantle it? We want to get it right, and I think as was said, we want to get it right for the citizens of Jacksonville. I think Peter earlier said that there are 2 buckets here. And the first bucket is price. And I think that we need to be sensitive to that because there is an investment in this land. There's been a lot of money. Now, is it paid for? Absolutely. But we cannot overlook there is a huge price differential. Obviously, both folks looked at it. They made their choice. They did their evaluation. They came up with those numbers. The second part, which I think Peter really sort of succinctly said, it is about what the vision would look like. And there's a couple things that make me want to support Elements of Jacksonville. First, in the presentation that was me that jumped out at it is the number of things, the proposals that they have already done. It was on the water. And I think for those of us who have had the opportunity to live in this town for so very long, we have a treasure that is extraordinary. And it took some of us a long time in the city to get it right and realize that we need to make it, that's the crown jewel, is our river. And I think that is something that really resonated with me, is that the past projects that were done by Elements of Jacksonville were sensitive to the water and sensitive to what makes Jacksonville, and that's our river. The second part that I think was the part that they do, in fact, they are surrounded. They have an investment. They got to get it right. And again, I'm from the old school. Local presence is important. The folks that from my understanding, a lot of folks are going to be here. I know a number of the people who are involved in this project. They're pretty good at knowing their way around City Hall. I have an idea, Ms. Townsend, is that if we move forward, they said it would take up to a year, but I think we all understand the faster the due diligence is done, the faster you get to turning over land. And so I think based on vision, based on price, I think based on the sensitivity to the river, I think the opportunity that, I'm going back to my old days of having just retired, I think the idea of the healthy part, I think gives us an opportunity to do something different, allows us an opportunity to do something that we can be a leader in. And I like the idea that the fact is that there's a lot of green in that. And I think for what we sometimes fail to remember is that there's going to be access to it. And in this community, there are really more people who do not have access to this wonderful river. And I think when you look at the concept at Elements of Jacksonville, I think that there will be people that will have an opportunity to have access in a venue that will make them come to appreciate and come to treasure the river as I did. So, Ms. Townsend, I am a supporter of your motion. So, having heard no other, you have heard the motion. Ms. Townsend, and my proposal, let me restate it, is that you would proceed with a positive motion a positive vote on elements of Jacksonville, given the parameters in which we heard, with a fallback position if those dates, parameters I'm using need help from the attorneys here. The words that would say if it didn't work, we would then look to the second proposal. If I said that in an articulate way, that still is legal?
That's exactly right. The contract, you're basically authorizing staff to go and enter into contract negotiations and develop a contract with the element folks. And should that fail, for whatever reason, you go into the secondary bidder, into negotiations with the secondary bidder.
And thank you. Okay, you've heard them, and I apologize to say this, and I should have, and I want to say to the staff that did it, I think Lisa and everyone else said, I want to say thank you to the group that scored this. We look to you. This must have been a difficult thing, and we appreciate the time that you put into it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if we could add one clarification, or if the board could consider adding one additional clarification, is that we would negotiate the contract on behalf of the board and then ultimately bring that contract back to the board for final approval.
That's fine with me.
Yeah, and I would want to also say that I don't like the idea of the second bidder being automatic.
Okay.
I think if we fail on the first bidder, we ought to come back to the board.
Okay. All right, I have two different things. Mr. Townsend, how would you like to accept? You were amending your motion.
Is that a friendly amendment?
That's not.
I'll accept the amendment.
You'll accept Peter's amendment? That it would come.
Which I think I did before, yes.
Yes. Let me restate. The Peter is not saying it would automatically go to the second one, is that if we can't do a contract with the first one, it would then come back to the board for additional discussion.
Yep. Okay,
is that
that's
correct?
That's correct.
Madam Chair, do you accept that? With that, your
But
second?
we have the opportunity
Yes.
to go forward with the second proposal.
Whatever the board decides, but it comes back to the board.
If it comes back.
More
we would start.
flexibility.
In essence, we would start again. If we can't work, we would come back and have a discussion about where we would move to the
It
second.
doesn't necessarily mean we would have to go to another RFP.
No.
We
No.
could, but we don't have to.
Right. But we would not automatically, it would not automatically fall to that. Okay. Everyone understand the motion? Yes. Okay. All those in favor of the motion as amended and the second amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Show the motion unanimous. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you all both for your presentation. Thank you to all for the work that you put into it. And
Good luck,
we
gentlemen.
look forward.
Thank you.
We look forward to the coming forward. Thank you very much.
Good luck.
That's the trouble with
All
writing
right,
a bid.
ladies
Now
and
you gotta pay
gentlemen,
for it.
we are. Can I? How about let's take a 5-minute break?
Yes, thank you.
The chair will entertain 5-minute break.
Okay.
5 minutes at
We'll get back at 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. All right, you got 7 minutes. 7-minute break.
Melissa? Melissa?
All right.
Good job keeping us between the fences there, buddy.
All right.
I don't need it now. I really have 2 pieces of paper that was deal.
No, you know, your son had to work all night, so we're getting him for free. He's on rest. Hope we don't get called in the flu. If he gets called. It's hard to tell. I haven't heard all the negative stuff. Let me call you back. I think it's going better than it did last time. I mean, I haven't had any signs. Yes. We haven't had any signs. Well, you know, there were 11. Somebody said that. One of the
I still do some contract work speaking and peak performance and transmission growth and stress management. Hey, how are you?
Some of the naval people already. My brother's in jail.
I was just talking about somebody yesterday, you know, the first 2 years I was in
That's where the 7.
visual arts, pottery, Don't try me. I thought about it.
Is your wife coming to New York?
Yes.
Yes.
What, yes, she's coming. But
I'm getting paid an awful lot for this.
I'll tell you, Peter, we all are.
Hey, listen, Peter, you're going to get car. You're going to get plug-in cars.
Yeah. You know, you're probably right. I'll bet they do give the board members plug-in cars next year when we're gone, Mike.
You know, the first, I think the first time we have one of those things where you plug in, it's got to say Peter Bowers is on it.
Yeah.
Well, I hope in 10 years there's enough of them around to increase our load factor.
Man, I just hope I hear in 10 years.
That's it, yeah.
You should be.
Well, after that.
Given your starting point.
Well, I'm still going to remind Peter when he said Hightower's older than he is.
I'm just kidding you, Mike.
No, he isn't.
I'm not that far behind you.
Peter, your office oversees that land, so we could designate you as board project manager and keep an eye on it.
Actually, I don't look over it out of my office, but the university job.
She still hasn't given me the right numbers.
Absolutely.
All right.
What time is this meeting going to end? Never?
Hey, was my mic on?
We're back.
Hey, Melissa, I put a little note in here for you.
Oh, I have not signed all my stuff. I apologize.
Okay.
No, I gave her a love note.
Is mine on? Is it? Oh, yeah, okay, good.
Okay.
Okay, where are we?
Melissa?
I was trying to.
All right, so we're starting back on number 2.
Gina, give it to Melissa.
Page.
Melissa, let her see you give it.
That's a tribute to Mike and
That's
his
a little
getting these. How did you
We're on, what is that, Roman numeral?
3.
3, number 2, right?
Truly
The IBD.
Roman numeral.
IBD.
Right, and that is, yeah, and that's Roman numeral.
That's 3B2.
B2.
Got it. We are back.
Singing on the phone?
Wow. Let's see, you can move
He
forward.
was not. Okay.
If we can go back to our agenda, we're on Roman numeral 2,
3.
3B2, right? 3B2?
Yes, sir.
Right. JEA, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, IEBW, Local 2358 Collective Bargaining Agreement. Angie Hires, Chief Human Resources Officer. That would be you.
That would be me. Okay.
Welcome.
Okay. Good afternoon, Board of Directors and Managing Director. I too will attempt to be brief as it has been a long afternoon. I'll bring your attention to tab 3B2 in the materials that were presented to you in our office memorandum dated October 21st, 2014. The subject is the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, also known as IBEW Local 2358 Collective Bargaining Agreement. Currently, JEA and IBEW Local 2358 has been operating under an agreement that expired on September 30th, 2012. And since that time, we have been attempting to negotiate an agreement from October 1st, 2012 that would go through September 30th, 2015. The parties have been extensively meeting and attempting to negotiate this agreement, and we're pleased to say that that has been completed. The parties have come back to the table, have agreed to take the proposal to ratification vote. As a matter of fact, the ratification process is taking place as we speak. The ratification vote began this morning at 6:30 a.m. and will continue through 7:00 p.m. tonight. Both parties are aware that the board must approve the agreement, and assuming that the membership ratifies the proposed contract today, as well as the board approving the action and taking action on that ratification, we would like to recommend that the board approve this ratification agreement. However, there's a couple of things that we wanted to point out as we move forward. With the assumption that the membership does ratify the agreement through vote, as well as the board does approve it, then this agreement will become effective according to the board procedure. However, if IBEW should fail to ratify the contract tonight, the proposed contract would then be null and void of the board's approval. As we talk about this agreement and also the negotiation process that took place, I wanted to bring to your attention some of the discussion items that was included on the memorandum that was presented to you. I think this is very important that I point out just a few of those, because I think this really exemplifies that when parties get together, go back to the table, actually exemplify the true spirit of negotiations, that things can happen and we can move the process along. Both parties sat down to the table and went back again and tried to get the agreement moving forward. IBEW, their negotiating team, as well as their representative, agreed that if they can have the ratification vote go forward, that they would waive their right to negotiate for the year October 1st, 2012 through September 30th, 2013. If you might recall, the agreement that I just mentioned would have been in effect from October 30th, 2015. By waiving that right of the October 1st, 2012 through September 30th, 2013, we would enter into a 3-year effective agreement October 1st, 2013 through September 30th, 2016, which is an additional year on that contract. Also, I wanted to remind you that under Florida Statute 447, that 3-year limitation is on a public sector contract. Also, as a part of the spirit of negotiation, management has agreed that if this particular contract is ratified and it is approved by the board, that upon the first pay period following the ratification, any compensation that is due our employees under this agreement would be paid, as well as a 1% ratification incentive payable after that ratification. Given the things that I've mentioned and the information contained on the memorandum that was presented to you, and also contingent upon the successful ratification of the agreement, we recommend that the board approve the agreement between JEA and the International Brotherhood 2358.
Thank you, Angie. Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard the recommendation from our HR director. The chair will entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the recommendation as proposed.
And I second that.
Second. Discussion.
I just had one question.
Yes.
Angie, is the ratification incentive based on FY 2014, 13-14 or 14-15?
It's based upon the ratification of the contract as a whole.
Okay.
And that would not be included in base pay. It's a one-time incentive.
Okay.
Any
What
other
are the base
discussion?
pay increases?
Pardon me?
What are the base pay increases?
The base pay increases is for the fiscal year 2013-2014, it's 0. Fiscal year 2014-2015, 3. And for fiscal year 2015-2016, 2%.
032.
Yes.
032.
Just for abundance of clarity, it's essentially 0-0. So I want to
Yes.
give credit to the bargaining unit in terms
Because
of
of 12.
Yes,
Yep,
yes,
yep,
sir.
yep.
So we should recognize that it was 0-0, and then 3, and then 2. So.
Yes.
Just a question, when will we know the results of the ratification process?
We should know that about 9 o'clock tonight. 7 p.m.?
7 p.m. tonight?
Okay, 7 p.m.
And you would inform the board?
Yes, most definitely.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I'll second.
Moving second here. All right, you heard the motion, heard the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, show it pass unanimous. Thank you. And
Thank you for-
again, I want to say, in the spirit of good negotiations, I think it's part of the process, but hearing that both sides can come together, that's what it's all about. But
Thank you for your
from
consideration.
The part that, from both sides of how we got here, and thank you. It's really important.
Mr. Chairman, may I just point out that Rodney Wickham, our president of the IBEW, is here. Rodney, just thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
work.
Well, that's why you have on the IBW cap.
And Travis is with it. Travis,
Thank you all. Angie, thank you for your team, and thank you to IBM. Thank you for doing this. All right, on Roman numeral 3,
We've done that, right?
2, sole source energy and procurement, John McCarthy, you're up.
Oh, he's up again?
Hey, he's on a roll today.
So I thought I would be content sensitive and consider the time and make this, I think I can save a couple minutes. This is an informational item in your board packets, and we report this out quarterly to just add more transparency on these procurements that do not go through our bidding process. We show aggregated data for all formal and informal, and detailed information for all formal. This is the information from the most recent quarter on the right-hand column, and if you drop down to the body, you'll see the emergency percentage and the sole source percentage, and it's a total of 0.57 for the quarter. Our total awards for the quarter were $62.6 million. Sole source were $170,000. And that's how this reads, which you all have seen. Our benchmark for this is, we think, 5% across the industry, and we've been achieving approximately 2% average year over year. I typically go over any of the formal sole source awards that were made during the quarter. The good news is we didn't have any this quarter. So this shows the 7 that we've made in the last year. This is the trend, the 3-year trend, and this spiked a little bit a couple quarters ago, but now we're back down. Are there any questions for me?
questions?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, Melissa Dykes will make a presentation. She is going to do Roman numeral 3B5, and then she will present Roman numeral 3B4, which will be the 5-year. So we're going to get the bi-monthlies. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate you allowing me to change the order of the presentation. I thought we would start by talking about where we are, having just recently finished the last fiscal year, and then finish up with where we're going over the next 5 years. In terms of the close of fiscal year 2014, we ended the year from a metrics perspective in a very healthy position to be able to present to the rating agencies at our meeting coming up in December. Debt service coverage was 2.4 times, which exceeded our target, a little lower than last year, but still very healthy for compared to our peer utilities. Days of liquidity and days of cash were both down a little bit from last year, but again, both very healthy positions from a credit perspective. And our debt to asset ratio fell to 74%. Our target is 60% or under 60%, but just for context, that compares to the median of our peers in the industry at about 53%. So while we continue to make great progress from a debt perspective, we still have a long way to go. Water and sewer, a similar story. Debt service coverage, very healthy. Days of liquidity and days of cash, both slightly above last year, and continued improvement in that debt to asset ratio. Wanted to just illustrate debt in a slightly different way than we typically talk about in these presentations. Another way to look at the amount of debt that we have on our balance sheet is to talk about debt per customer, which is simply the amount of debt we have outstanding divided by the number of customers. And so for each of JEA's customers, they have about $14,000 in debt that they're responsible for repaying over time. That compares with a utility average of closer to $5,000 per customer. So it's a pretty significant chunk of money for each of our individual customers that they'd be responsible for. This is a look at what happened with sales. This is the trend in sales in the electric system since 2006. And as you can see, there's a clear decline, which we've talked about at numerous previous meetings. Fiscal year 14, we did see a bump up in electric sales. That was driven primarily by January. If January 2014 had been equal to January 2013, our sales would have been down for the year. And so it was a 1-month polar vortex event that helped us with sales for the year. And the next page just shows some of the backup data month to month behind some of those sales. From a financial perspective, sales were up versus last year. In the fuel fund, we were net down in the fuel fund about $2.8 million, and that includes the refund that we were able to credit our customers last spring. We are still right about our target for the total fuel fund balance there, and hoping that our forecast will maintain trend on fuel pricing, so we'll be able to consider a credit much later in the next fiscal year, but that's been a nice trend we've seen on fuel. From a revenue perspective, we were about $31 million under budget on revenue, offset by, from a budget perspective, $26 million under on O&M and $22 million under on capital. The capital fund savings, in particular, enabled us over the last year to do some bond buyback in the electric system and allowed us to begin pre-funding some of those plant Vogel expenses that will come due before commercial operation of that facility. So that was a nice benefit of that in the electric system. Water and sewer, similar story on sales. In fact, fiscal 14 was below fiscal 13, and for the first time since 2002, sales in the water system finished below 33 million kgals. So it just tells you how backwards we're moving in terms of sales per customer in the water and sewer system. It continues to be very significant. And the breakdown on this page in particular that I'll highlight is that we've had another big drop year over year in irrigation, small drop in residential, small increase in commercial and industrial. But precipitation isn't really telling us the full story about what's going on. There's other drivers of what's going on with sales here. There's more rainfall in fiscal 14 versus fiscal 13, but on fewer days. And so academically, those ought to sort of offset one another, and yet we're continuing to see this decline. And in fact, I don't think I've watered my yard in over a year, and so it sort of supports what we're seeing broadly in our service territory.
She said Poor Brian, look at
It
him.
might be 2.5 years almost.
It is.
I mean, 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. From a financial perspective, total revenues were about $7 million under budget, offset by $12 million in O&M expenses that were under budget and $33 million in capital under budget. The capital savings, similar to electric, allowed us to do some bond buyback in water and sewer as well to help us continue to improve that debt position. So we do have a long way to go still in terms of our balance sheet. We're slowly making progress in terms of getting there.
Yeah, I noticed that we've got about $400 million in revenues, but we've got about $1.8 billion in debt. So it's a little over 4.5 times our revenue number. The water system just isn't very profitable. I mean, it takes a lot of infrastructure to get the revenues we get.
Yeah, it's an extremely capital-intensive business.
Yeah, so it's tough. But congratulations for making the good progress you had.
Mr. Bauer, to put a little context on that, we peaked at 10 times, which was frightening. I mean, very frightening.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you can see that on these charts here. It's this is just to illustrate some of that continued progress in terms of debt pay down. The breakdown in combined debt outstanding, we're now down to under $5.3 billion total. Which is is starting to feel like a better number. It's still a very large number, but
Let the minutes reflect that Helen was applauding.
And I should have worn my T-shirt for this presentation. Maybe, next time.
But the ratios are still the same.
I'm sorry?
But the ratios are still the same because the revenue line keeps going down. Right.
The revenue line does keep falling. But to put the $5.3 billion in context, it's down from $6.4 billion in 2010, so it wasn't very long ago.
But we are paying about the same in debt service.
We're a little lower on debt service versus 2010, I think. But that's primarily driven by refinancing activity, more than a lowering of actual debt service. And speaking of debt service cost and refinancing activity, this chart is really the bright side of low interest rates. Through refinancings, we've been able to reduce the weighted average interest rate associated with our portfolio from, it was 4.2% in 2011, and we're down to 3.8% this year. And it's doubly significant, that reduction, because we've also, over the same time period, fixed out $800 million in bonds. So we've shed that variable rate risk from the portfolio and continued to reduce the overall cost. This chart, thankfully, continues to be boring. We, over the last fiscal year, renewed or replaced 12 different credit facilities in our variable rate portfolio. We'll have another 6 that are coming up in fiscal year 15 and continue to look to an eye for counterparty diversification and favorable credit terms in these agreements. This is the less bright side of low interest rates. We have a book of investments, and currently our weighted average yield in those investments continues to hover below 1%. So while we're the beneficiaries of that on the debt side, we're on the asset side seeing those lower returns.
And these are required reserves?
They are required reserves. They are designated in 2 different categories. There are restricted reserve funds and unrestricted funds. The restricted ones are specifically required by our bond resolution. They have limited uses and very specific uses and are required to be held for the benefit of bondholders that are outstanding. The unrestricted funds help bolster our liquidity position. And we maintain our credit rating in part because we demonstrate commitment to continued reduction in that debt portfolio, and in part because we've got very healthy debt service coverage. And the final piece of that financial metrics trio is liquidity. And so because we can show that liquidity position that's commensurate with our peers, we've maintained our credit rating in spite of our balance sheet.
If we had less debt, we wouldn't need to have this much liquidity.
Absolutely.
I don't know if I'll live to see the day.
You'll still be on
It's
the board,
coming. We've
Peter.
got a 5-year financial projection coming up.
Don't count on it.
Listen, if I might, a little historical context in terms of the amount of dedicated reserve funds that we have. There are some of the community that have sort of a view of 10 years ago, and the world was very different 10 years ago in that most of our bond reserves were done through surety. So we did not have cash on the balance sheet, but we were paying small fees for essentially insurance policies. Those all blew up in the financial crisis, and we had to, and Treasury did a wonderful job in terms of from 07, 8, 9 up to today in cash funding those reserves and replacing the sureties because they don't hold the same value that they once did. So it looks like it's been significant growth. It has been, but we've really been replacing the sureties that are no longer of any value.
I understand.
That's a great point. Thank you. These two charts I'll leave you to, in the interest of time, peruse at your leisure. This is a preview of the what we said and what we did charts that we'll provide to the rating agencies. In general, coverage was good. Liquidity was fairly comparable to last year. Debt reduction is on target. Capital expenditures were lower, and sales, as we've talked about, remain a challenge in both systems. So this is a preview of them, but you'll see them in more detail in December. Any questions on fiscal year 2014
Yes,
before
the question I always ask, and the capital savings in both electric and water, are we deferring these capital projects, or it seems like every year we have savings in capital? So are we over budgeting, or why do we have the capital savings, and are we deferring them?
There's a couple. So I'll tease out your question into two separate ones. Are we deferring projects? That I ask that question of Mike and Brian every month, and the answer is no. We are demonstrating some pretty significant discipline in the capital projects that we're undertaking and trying to get them done at the lowest possible cost. And I think you see that in the overall system performance metrics. There's no degradation in any of our system metrics in either electric or water, which tells us we're spending enough to keep the system operating. In terms of why we come in under budget every year, there are some contingencies that get built into our capital budget, and part of that is weather driven. We have a weather contingency in all of our budget that we construct, and it shows up in the capital budget as well. And so typically in a given year there's a little contingency in that budget.
This is the last year I'll be asking that question.
Happy to continue
I'll
to
be
answer it.
taking
We'll
over
probably
from
hear it
there.
in December as well.
Okay. But I will state that reliability still is going up.
Right.
So.
Right.
It's a very good
Okay.
story from a capital investment perspective. Any other questions on 14?
Great, thank you.
Can we move to?
Well, congratulations to everybody.
Yeah, very good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good financial performance.
Yep.
All right,
Good report.
Melissa is now going to do the JEA 5-year financial assumption projections.
This presentation really just captures the key assumptions that are going to go into the projections that we developed to share with the rating agencies in December. And so I'll talk about where we are in terms of these assumptions and how that differs from what we've showed them in prior years. In the electric system, we are now projecting 12 million megawatt hours as our annual sales number. That's a weather-adjusted, normalized number that our load research group projects is the weather-adjusted number for our service territory, and we're projecting that flat for the first time. Last year we had showed about a 0.5% increase in sales, and this year I think this reflects the actual sales performance that we're seeing in the system, that we're projecting flat sales in electric.
Melissa, compared to some of our peer group, are they having the same sort of experience?
Generally, yes, with the caveat that I think we're, from a latitude perspective, somewhat uniquely positioned in that our customers use electric for heating in the winter and cooling in the summer. Where that differs from what other utilities are experiencing is if you move farther to the south, they're clearly summer peakers, and they're clearly using more electric for cooling in the summer than they are for heating in the winter. And when you move north, there's much more reliance on natural gas and oil products for heating, and not as much reliance on electric. So in some ways, what we're seeing is actually exaggerated because we've got it in both seasons.
But I'm just saying, I mean, we're seeing actually flat growth.
Mm-hmm.
Here, regardless of when it is, are most other utilities seeing flat growth for electric sales?
Yes. Yeah, it's a national issue. There's a great, in fact, Wall Street Journal article, I can send you after this on it, but that talks about that this is an unprecedented issue for the industry. Typically, growth was about, rule of thumb, 3% every year, and that was typical for 100 years, however long it's been measured. Or another rule of thumb is it was roughly tied to GDP growth, and so you'd see electric sales growth grow at about the same rate as GDP. And that the GDP growth in particular has just completely become decoupled from electric sales.
Melissa, could you send that out to us? Would
Sure.
you mind? That would be really helpful.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you.
problem at
Thank
all.
you for sharing that.
In the water and sewer system, a similar story. We are seeing declines year over year. We're projecting 33 million kgals in terms of water sales for the projection, the 5-year projection period going forward. What that means from a rates and revenue requirements perspective is that we're projecting relatively flat all in through this projection period. What we'll see in the back end of this projection period is a decline in fuel rate coupled with an increase in base revenue requirements, and those roughly are offsetting each other in the current model. And in water and sewer, we foresee stable
What
rates
does
through the
base
entire
revenue
projection period.
requirements say? That rate increases?
Total revenue requirements are used to calculate our rates for the year. So if our revenue requirement total is stable, that would imply that total rates or total bills would be stable.
And if they're not?
Then there would be an adjustment in rates to reflect our revenue requirements. Essentially, we're cost-based, and so we figure out how much the whole system costs us to run and charge our customers for that.
What do we, in terms of generation, if we're not going to be not showing growth, what are we doing in reducing generating capacity? I mean, we're not spending money to generate power that we're not selling. So how are we addressing that?
Well, the first big step we took was
Okay, let's
several months ago when we took Northside 3 and moving that into cold storage. And
Right.
so that's occurring now over the next 12 months. That's the first step. The second step will be looking at some of the other older individual 50 megawatt simple cycles we have, sort of 1970-ish type machines. And
I mean,
taking them down.
if you look at the 5-year projection, not even to talk about the EPA, what impact that
Right,
may have, but
right,
obviously there's some work to be done. Mike?
The savings are minuscule, though. That's the problem. I mean, these once you get them paid off,
Yeah.
you mothball them. The number of people that are taking to operate this thing is pretty tiny.
Yeah, well,
And so,
that's
you know,
not
you
a big
save
cost,
a
it's
few
not
million
people cost.
dollars,
No. Yeah.
and we're talking about billions.
Yeah. No.
And so that doesn't entirely save us.
It doesn't. I wasn't implying to
We
save it, just
we
whether
really
we're doing
need a
something.
base rate.
I agree.
And, you know, I'm still hoping that we are working on producing a base rate along with a variable.
I don't see how you can
Yes.
avoid that.
Yep.
You have less than a minute left.
From a debt perspective, I will talk quickly. We are projecting $2.6 billion in the electric system at the end of our 5-year period and $1.6 billion in water and sewer, so continuing to make progress there. The 67% and the 49% that are shown on this chart, worth noting, they're still pretty significantly above medians, but continuing to make significant progress in the right direction. And just to summarize, Mr. Bauer, in response to your hope that we're continuing to work on it, we are. Part of what's driving the ability to have stable rates for this projection period in water and sewer is that we have the right rate structure. And we recognize that, and we're working toward that in the electric system, and we'll bring some options back to the board for fair discussion at a future board meeting. But in general, that this is a very positive story that we'll be able to share with the rating agencies in December.
It is for right now.
Mhm.
My worry is 2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now, distributed power, solar panels could be more of an impact. We don't know, but it's certainly growing in certain parts of the country, and it will impact us dramatically.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Just one quick thing. Melissa, the 5-year projection, is that going to be a part of our rating
Yes.
agency presentation?
Yes, it will. Mhm.
Okay.
I'll be doing it this year.
Good by me.
Any other questions?
Any other questions for Melissa?
No.
Thank you.
Thank
ma'am.
you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Melissa. Are any other new business? Not hearing any. Any old business? Not hearing any. At this time, I'd like to turn the meeting over to our EPA Committee Chair, Lisa Weatherby, to report on the EPA Committee meeting. Madam Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The EPA Committee, consisting of myself, Wyman Winbush, and Hussein Cumber, met on October 10th, 2014. At this time, I would like to call for a motion, a second, and a vote to approve the minutes of the September 9th, 2014 EPA committee meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. The committee was provided an update on several things, but Bud Para, Chief Public Affairs Officer, provided the committee with JEA's comments to the EPA in final draft form. The EPA has extended the deadline to receive comments until December 1st. The EPA committee will meet again on November 11th, 2014 to review the final comments. A one-page summary will be presented to board members. Also, Bud Para provided an update on the final preparations for the EPA symposium. The EPA symposium was held at the Jacksonville Main Library on September 25th. The symposium was attended by approximately 130 people, including JEA board members, senior management and staff, state regulators, representatives from congressional staff, state legislature and staff, city council and staff, JACS chamber members, community leaders, commercial customers, concerned citizens, and media personnel. Just about everybody, I guess you could say. We received several presentations. The first was by Dr. Kenneth L. Mitchell, Special Assistant to the Director, EPA Region 4 Clean Air Program. Dr. Mitchell provided an overview and description of the proposed rule and the benefits of the rule. Secondly, Jeff Homestead, who's head of the Environmental Strategies Group at Bracewell and Giuliani. Mr. Homestead's presentation included information on the Clean Air Act, Section 111D, our favorite section, EPA's legal authority, recent court decisions, legal risk, and state plan options. And finally, Teresa Pugh, Director of Environmental Services for the American Public Power Association, gave a presentation. She provided information on the schedule for comments, final rule, state plans and implementation, general goal discussion, EPA's 4 building blocks for meeting the goals, the first being generator efficiency improvements, the second, redispatch from coal to natural gas, the third being renewables, and the fourth being energy efficiency improvements. Following the symposium, we held meaningful, facilitated tabletop discussions, and then each group provided an overview of their discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This concludes our report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, thank you to your committee. Any other comments, Mr. Wimbush? Anything you would like to add to your Chair's committee report?
No, I will say that it was well attended and very well appreciated. I think comments were reflected also in the press and the media as well.
And I'm going to make the perfect bridge for our CEO's report as a result of the symposium that Bud and I were so worried about that it would only be he and I. Maybe some of you all would be attending. And it was more than just Bud and I and a couple of y'all that we forced to come. As a result of that, I'm going to bridge now to our managing director's report to talk about, as a result of the symposium, of a meeting that was held here.
Yes, as a result of that, the mayor reached out to the EPA in Washington, specifically the administrator, Gina McCarthy. And Ms. McCarthy joined us for a meeting of about an hour, about 45 minutes of dialogue after the introductions took place. It was a positive and a constructive meeting. She had laid out sort of in her opening remarks, talked for about 10 minutes and hit the top 5 key issues that we've identified within the industry, all of those important to JEA. She missed a couple from our perspective, and after we had the introduction, the chairman certainly set the stage very well. The mayor spoke and the administrator spoke, and I had the opportunity to engage with her specifically on 2 key points, biomass and also the interstate flow of energy. And both of those hadn't risen, I think, to the top 10, but she took notes. And the next day, we actually heard back from District 4 out of Atlanta to establish a follow-up meeting. So it was a very positive and constructive meeting. Big first step. Staying with that, at the state level, I've been very actively involved with the Florida Coordinating Group, and it is a group of all the utilities in the state in trying to set ourselves up as a group to communicate effectively, really a coalition to communicate effectively with the state agencies as they formalize the state plan. And we have made very, very good progress in terms of establishing a group of utilities that are very like-minded. So we're going to have some friends that are going to be tightly coordinated as we go to Tallahassee and work in the final steps of implementation next year and into the following year. And I'll give a little more detail on that when we all sign up, and that should be in the next couple of weeks or so. So that's been very positive. Another regulatory issue, continue to make good strides with the Water Management District in terms of water cautionary, and I think maybe next meeting we'll have a little further briefing on that, and Board Member Olby will be able to give us a brief on those activities, but still positive and constructive. I would say from the board, we opened up this morning with a presentation from the Jasmine, but just to let the board know that the senior management team has been working now for, well, it might almost be almost a year, but 9 months anyway, very in-depth in terms of inclusion and diversity, and we've been really getting to know one another and starting to think about how to make JEA a more inclusive workplace, more inclusive community, more inclusive and part in engagement in the community. And I just mention that because we're getting pretty close to come and have a dialogue with the board, and there's a couple of key action items that we can undertake that I think might be a little out front for our community, but I think will be supported certainly by the right thing to do for us as we continue to grow and develop and really become part of the fabric of our community. The JD Power, I just had to take a moment on that. It's 20 months. I mean, it's 20 months, and we have moved from the bottom. And I've said this to all the employees. We had the town hall meetings over the last week and a half, where I met with 15 times. Joy, thank you very much and Angie. We went around and spoke to. We probably reached almost 70% of all the employees in one-on-one. When we started 20 months ago, we were 116 out of 121, and in 20 months, this team. And it's not me, and it's not the senior team. It's everyone on the front line, everyone engaged in work at JEA, the community affairs, the volunteer, all aspects. And to move to 23 out of 140 is just phenomenal performance in that short period of time. And it is a lot driven by quality, and that was a big metric and shows we are investing in the system. And then finally, EV. I'm really proud of the work the team did, and sometimes, one of the things we as a group struggle with it. We'd like to go a little faster on some of these issues, but we've learned we don't want to beat the market because we beat the market sometimes will beat us back. But if we can meet the market and grow in a very strategic fashion, and some of these initiatives will be really successful in the long run. And thanks for everybody's patience today and dedication to the good decision, the good work, and staying with the process. It was a long one. 20 years Southside, and I think we're going to have a great project there. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. The Chairman's report, real quick, I just want to thank my colleagues, one, for a very long day, and I really appreciate the due diligence. It was a word that was used a lot today, but the questions that were asked, really do appreciate the way that you all approached it. To John and to Nancy, thank you for the great work and the team that really kind of helped do that. I know that was not easy, and as I shared with the group, we sort of at a very high level took your information, made a huge decision, but there were a lot of time and effort that went into that, and it's a collaborative effort. But I will say, for at least some of us who for more than 20 years have looked across and seen that site, this is I think what we did today, the leadership team, what we did today as a team here, I think is going to make a huge difference. I think we're going to get it right, and we're going to make a change to the skyline of Jacksonville, so I say thank you. I want to thank Lisa and Hussein and Bud and Wyman with the good work that they're doing on this EPA. It's going to be around a while for some of those that will be here after the chairman and I leave, but it is going to be something, and I want to say to Bud and to the leadership team, if it had not been for the publicity and the coverage that we did in that symposium, not knowing how it was going to do, it was sort of we were rolling the dice, particularly when Wyman and Lisa came back and I came up caffeine over it. I said, well, let's have a symposium, and Bud, what happens if nobody comes? I said, Bud, and I'll be there. But as it turned out, our concerns were taken directly to the administrator. And, it was interesting in that conversation, and Paul did an extraordinary job, everyone, of making our points very succinct to the administrator. That at that time, there were over 750,000 comments had been submitted on this proposal. They're expecting close to 4 million. But I will tell you, it didn't go without some visibility that the administrator heard in this building what our concerns were. And I don't know where that's going to do, but as we found out today through the negotiations, as long as you keep those communications open, she was respectful, she listened. No guarantees, but I think in that situation she understood what we were saying. She understood the difference, why we were different. And when you're thinking of up to 4 million comments, she listened to us for an hour. And in the big scheme of things, I think that speaks volumes of the due diligence that this group, the leadership team, and the board is doing. Lisa, to what your committee is doing. So I just say to all of you all, thank you. So. We've got a November. It's going to be
Mr. Chairman,
interesting.
may I ask you a question? Can we clarify when is the financial audit committee meeting? We said the 18th, but that's the board meeting date. So do we know when that's going to be?
I think we currently have it on schedule an hour before the board
It's the
meeting.
same day as the board meeting? Okay.
Yeah, but we may be working to try to schedule that sort of the week before, because if we get the reports due. So we're going to work on some calendars. We're meeting with the chair, Mr. Bauer, very early next week.
Could you just notify all of us? I'd like to attend that last one if I can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And as we're hoping is that we will be getting our third party from our independent, from the actuary.
That's right, yes.
We will have that.
And,
Right.
and so we know, as the process, we know that, of course, it's going to be open, so the press will be there. But we're hoping that, thanks to Mr. Bowers and that committee, we'll have some idea. And the important thing is that it will prepare us to, when we go to New York, to have a very thoughtful presentation. And so we're going to monitor that and manage the information that's going to come out. So again, I ask y'all's indulgence, and I ask y'all's continued support. I think we've got a good story to tell based on facts, and we will get through this. Other than that,
You'll have a recommendation.
Okay, fine. We've heard that from the chair.
And that's really important. We had the opportunity, Melissa and I, and Joe was with us, to meet 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago now, with 10 individual investors. These are people that own our bonds and are looking at our bonds. A half-hour meeting and over a day, and we were 10 for 10. The first thing in the question was, what's this pension thing all about, et cetera, et cetera. And it was over and above. It came above EPA, it came above our debt load, it came above the transition in the electric industry they wanted to know. So we need that clarity and unanimity when we go to the agencies in December.
Well, Mr. Chairman, we're going to be looking to that. So other than that, thank you all for a great day, a great meeting, and thanks to the leadership for what you have done. We are adjourned.
Thank you.